Tonight I invite you to step into a strange journey, not a trek across mountains or forests, nor an adventure to some faraway land. This is a return to the very place we have long forgotten the silent presence within our own soul. The Buddha once said, "Within the human mind lie mountains and rivers, heaven and earth, the moon and the stars." Yet for so many years, we have only noticed storms and waves, worries and turmoil, rarely seeing the vast, clear sky that has always been there. We have chased the constant changes outside, forgetting that there is a quiet sky of peace waiting within. This journey will unfold through ancient stories, simple metaphors drawn from daily life. Each story is like a lantern lighting up a dark corner of the mind, helping you realize suffering is not the enemy, but the patient teacher who helps us grow. Impermanence is not loss, but the fragile beauty of life. Non-self is not emptiness, but an open doorway connecting us to all beings. And gratitude, trust, and joy will become guiding lights carrying us through the restless night. Imagine this, not simply as listening to a Dharma talk, but as traveling through your own consciousness. Each teaching is a bridge, each story a step. Step by step, they bring you back to yourself, to the clarity and gentleness you have carried all along. Welcome to Silent Moon Dharma, a place where seeds of wisdom and compassion are planted through every word, every story. If you feel a sense of resonance, please support the channel by subscribing, leaving a comment, or sharing this video with someone who may be in need of a moment of stillness. Perhaps you will be the one to sow a seed of goodness for them. And now, as your mind grows a little calmer, let us open the first door of this journey, where the Buddha's teachings will slowly unfold through story after story. Have you ever sat completely still and watched a leaf fall yesterday? It was fresh and green, but after just one night it turns golden, then gently leaves its branch carried away by the wind. In that moment, you suddenly see a profound truth. Nothing lasts forever. More than 2,000 years ago, the Buddha revealed that all phenomena, our bodies, emotions, even mountains and oceans, are subject to arising and passing away, changing moment by moment. This is impermanence anicca. Impermanence is not some distant abstract idea. It is the reality present in every breath, in every moment you live. There is a story about a female potter named Alara. Alara was born and raised in a village famous for pottery, where every roof was covered in red kiln dust, and the sound of clay ovens echoed day and night. From childhood, she was captivated by the softness of clay. Her small hands were often smeared with dirt, yet her eyes shone with fascination. She could spend hours shaping lumps of clay into strange forms, quietly gazing at them as though they carried some hidden secret. As she grew, her talent became evident. The jars she made were refined and balanced, drawing admiration from the villagers. People praised her skill, predicting she would one day become the finest potter in the village. Yet beneath the praise, Alara was haunted by a deep obsession. She longed to create a jar of absolute perfection, without cracks, without flaws, without the slightest mistake. That longing soon turned into a burden. Each time she finished a piece, if she noticed even the smallest crack or curve out of place, she would immediately smash it with a hammer. Shards scattered, leaving her with emptiness, mixed with disappointment and anger. Year after year, countless jars came into being only to be destroyed in her hands. Countless nights spent by the fire turned to ash, all because Alara could not accept imperfection. Villagers began to whisper, "She is too harsh on herself." But Alara pressed on, increasingly exhausted, still chasing the dream of absolute perfection. One evening, as the sunset spread across the red-tiled roofs, Alara carried yet another cracked jar to the home of Master Isara, the renowned potter who had long since retired into seclusion. Her face bore the marks of exhaustion. She told him of her disappointment, her relentless obsession, her yearning to create a flawless piece. The old master listened silently, his gentle eyes seeming to see through her heart. When she finished, he offered no long speech, just a quiet smile. He stepped outside, took the cracked jar she had brought, and began preparing something. He brought out pure gold, ground it into fine powder, mixed it with tree resin, and carefully filled the cracks with it. His aged hands trembled, yet each movement was deliberate and reverent, as though performing a sacred ritual. When he was finished, he placed the jar under the setting sun. The light reflected off the gold-filled cracks, making them glow with shimmering brilliance. What once seemed ordinary, even flawed, was now a masterpiece. The cracks were no longer defects, but unique lines of beauty, making the jar shine in a way no other jar could. Alara stood frozen. Her eyes traced the golden lines, her heart both breaking and mending at once. She realized that it was impermanence, those very cracks she once despised, that made the jar unique and precious. Without them, it could never have become a masterpiece. From that moment, Alara was no longer enslaved by her obsession with perfection. She learned to honor every crack, every scar, as evidence of growth of the natural changes of earth fire and the human heart. From then on, her creations carried a new kind of beauty, the beauty of acceptance of harmony with impermanence. Alara's story is not just about pottery. It is about all of us, those who fear the cracks in life, forgetting that sometimes it is through those very cracks that light enters. Impermanence is like a cherry blossom falling into a river. While still on the branch, it seems ordinary, simply part of the tree. But the moment it lets go, floating briefly on the water before dissolving, its fleeting beauty strikes us deeply. If the flower never fell, if it remained unchanged, would we ever perceive that delicate brilliance in its fall? Its very brevity, its passing away, makes it beautiful. Human life is the same. Youth, health, love, happiness all flow by like water, impossible to hold. But instead of fearing or lamenting, we can learn to see this passing as a reminder. Youth fades to make room for maturity. A relationship ends to open the door to broader compassion. Declining health teaches us to cherish every breath, every step. Impermanence does not take meaning away from life. It gives each moment greater value. Knowing all things will pass, you linger longer with loved ones, listen more carefully, smile more in the present. Impermanence awakens us, reminding us not to waste life in illusions of permanence, but to savor each moment as it is. Modern science, too, confirms impermanence as the nature of life. Biologists show that cells in the human body are constantly changing. Most skin cells renew within weeks, intestinal cells within days, and even the entire skeleton regenerates about every 10 years. The body you have today is not the body you had a decade ago. If even the body is impermanent, how could emotions, thoughts, and circumstances remain unchanged? This is clear evidence that the Buddha's teaching is not just philosophy, but resonates with scientific truth. From Alara's story, we learn a profound lesson. Suffering does not come from change itself, but from clinging to things as though they could remain still. That clinging is the true root of suffering. Ask yourself if you wished your child to stay a child forever. Could they ever learn? Venture into the world and love with a mature heart. If summer never ended, how could autumn bring its golden leaves? Winter give the earth rest and spring awaken all life again. Change is the rhythm of life. Only when we release our grip can we fully live each moment. With an understanding of impermanence, we no longer waste our lives on anger, blame, or regret. Anger fades, grief subsides. Instead of clinging, we turn back to cherish every hug, every glance, every smile. When you look at loved ones knowing they will not always be there, you love more deeply, more gently, and with greater gratitude for every moment together. Life does not need to be perfect to be beautiful. Remember Alara's golden jar. The very cracks once seen as flaws became its unique beauty impossible to replicate. People too need not be perfect. Allow yourself to be incomplete, to make mistakes, to be vulnerable. That is what makes you real and approachable rather than a false jar without cracks. Even the breath is living proof of impermanence. Every inhalation is a birth, every exhalation a death. Sit quietly, watch your breath, and you will see everything changing moment by moment. From your heartbeat to the movement of your cells, change never stops. When you realize this, you see that no moment is ordinary, for every moment is unique. So instead of fleeing impermanence, learn to live with it. Let awareness of change nourish love and gratitude. Then each moment is no longer meaningless flow, but a precious jewel in life's short yet colorful journey. What causes human suffering is not change. Change is natural, but clinging to what cannot be held. Like someone clutching sand, the tighter they squeeze, the more slips away. We want to hold on to youth, but time still flows. We want to keep love as it was at the beginning, but hearts always change. When we accept impermanence, fear dissolves. Instead of resisting, we smile, walking lightly with the current of life, turning each change into a lesson, a new opportunity. And within impermanence lies a deeper doorway. If everything changes, does the self we cling to truly exist? Think of a river. Its waters never stop flowing, never the same from one moment to the next. We call it a river, yet there is no fixed entity behind that name, only the temporary union of water, current banks, and time. Human beings are the same. Our bodies shift daily emotions, hourly thoughts, moment by moment. The self we cling to is but an illusion pieced together from borrowed elements that arise and dissolve. Realizing this, we cling less. When hurt, we no longer feel it as a wound upon an unchanging me, but as a passing event. When we succeed, we do not grow arrogant, knowing success too is impermanent. And when we fail, we do not despair, for failure too flows on. The insight of non-self frees us. No longer trapped in a small self, we open to others, seeing our deep interconnection with all beings. This is the true liberation the Buddha sought to reveal. But understanding impermanence alone is not enough. If we only know all things change, but still try to cling, suffering remains. Remember Alara the potter. If she had known jars could break, but never released her obsession with perfection, she would have remained tormented. To see impermanence without learning to let go is like watching a river flow while still trying to grasp water in your hand. That is why, after contemplating impermanence, the next step in practice is letting go nekkhamma. Letting go is not losing, it is freedom. Like a traveler crossing a river, once the raft has served its purpose, if he insists on carrying it on his back, the journey grows heavier. Only when he sets it down can he continue lightly. Letting go is just like that. Not denying the value of the past, but knowing when to release it so you can move forward. We often don't realize that what exhausts us isn't a road that's too long or slopes that are too steep, but the burdens we refuse to set down. A person can go far if they know how to rest and drop excess baggage, but if they cling to everything, even useless things, then just a few steps become heavy. In the Buddha's teachings, there is a very important concept, nekkhamma, letting go. But letting go here is not loss nor a bitter renunciation full of sorrow. Letting go is liberation. It's like taking a heavy backpack off your shoulders and immediately feeling your body light, your steps relaxed, and your heart more open. Letting go does not take anything away. It returns to us freedom, stillness, and the ability to live fully in the present. Only when we know how to let go can we go farther on both the spiritual path and in life. Long ago, in a small village nestled against a mountainside, there was a young traveler named Ravi. He longed to go far and explore new lands, but on his way, he faced a great challenge. A wide, rushing river blocked his path. There was no bridge and no boat to cross. Seeing the swift current, Ravi hesitated for a moment, but then his will urged him to find his own way to the other side. He cut bamboo in the forest and patiently lashed it together with vines. His hands grew calloused, his shoulders ached, and sweat soaked his shirt. After many hours of effort, a small raft took shape. Ravi set it on the water, heart pounding, and carefully paddled across. The current rocked the raft. At times it nearly capsized, but with perseverance, he reached the opposite bank. The sense of victory made him breathe a sigh of relief. However, as he looked back at the raft, a thought arose. This raft helped me through danger. It's truly precious. I might need it again. So instead of leaving it by the riverbank, Ravi bound it tightly and hoisted it onto his shoulders, continuing his journey. At first, it felt only a little heavy, but the road grew more rugged. Steep, rocky inclines and narrow paths threading through dense forest made every step heavier. His shoulders burned, his back bent under the weight. His breath grew labored. Each step felt like an ordeal. He could no longer sense the beauty around him, the majestic mountains, the green canopies, the birds calling to one another. All of it faded behind the burden he had chosen to carry. Day after day, Ravi wore himself out until his mind revolved around nothing but the raft. He couldn't understand why the road ahead felt so tiring. One evening, as the sun was about to set, he happened upon a teacher meditating beneath a great tree by the road. Seeing Ravi drenched in sweat and gaunt in the face, the teacher asked what had happened. Ravi honestly recounted his journey from building the raft to carrying it for a long stretch of road. After hearing him out, the teacher smiled gently and said, "My child, a raft is not meant to be carried. It is meant to take you across the river. Once it has done its job, you must know how to let it go. If you cling to it, it ceases to be a means and becomes a burden, keeping you from enjoying life's beauty and freedom." those words struck Ravi like thunder. He realized that his clinging had turned a skillful means into a chain. In that moment, he slowly set the raft down. At once, his body felt light. His shoulders were free of the weight. He looked up and for the first time in many days smiled at the wide blue sky above. From that day on, Ravi walked at ease, no longer carrying the raft, but carrying a lesson. Letting go is not a betrayal of the past. It is knowing when something has fulfilled its purpose, so you can continue your journey lightly and freely. The story of Ravi and the raft is a mirror of our daily lives. How many times have you and I been like Ravi, shouldering burdens that have lost their value yet lacking the courage to set them down? It might be an old relationship, a painful memory, or a perfectionistic idea that binds us. Ravi's raft symbolizes tools and experiences that were once useful but have completed their mission. If we keep clinging to them, they become burdens that weigh down the mind and rob us of the ability to enjoy the present. In reality, many successful people are exhausted because they can't release the pressure, while those who have failed are trapped in past regrets. Both are like Ravi, carrying the raft through the forest. Letting go is not ingratitude or denial of the past. It is a wise act of self-liberation. When we set it down, we can lift our heads, breathe easily, and see the open sky. That is the art of living, to appreciate and also to release at the right time so we can move forward in freedom. Letting go is also like a bird that wants to soar but clutches a stone in its talons. It might beat its wings as hard as it can, but the heavy stone will drag it down, keeping it from touching the vast sky. Only when it releases the stone can it fly far and free among the clouds, true to its nature. We are no different. So often we cling to fame, money, past relationships, even painful memories. We think holding on will bring safety or a sense of control. But the truth is the opposite. The more we hold, the more we are bound. Like the grounded bird, the wings of our soul are held back by an invisible weight. Letting go does not mean denying or discarding. It means acknowledging that some things have completed their purpose. A past success can be a source of pride, but if we cling to it, it becomes an obstacle. A pain we once endured can teach us, but if we hold it tightly, it keeps us from opening to new joy. When we know how to release at the right time, life grows lighter, the heart more open, and the road ahead clearer. Only then are we truly free to live, to love, and to grow. Today, psychologists have studied and confirmed that people carry more mental baggage from the past than worries about the present. If you can't let go of painful memories or negative events, your brain will keep activating stress responses, raising cortisol, a hormone that causes fatigue and harms health. By contrast, when you know how to let go, your body releases endorphins and serotonin chemicals that reduce stress and create a sense of calm. What modern science has only recently proven the Buddha taught long ago, only by letting go is the mind truly healed. Remember, the raft does not lose its value just because we leave it on the riverbank. It fully accomplished its task, ferrying the traveler across. Its merit remains, its imprint endures. But that doesn't mean we must carry it forever. Likewise, in life, when relationships, jobs, or certain phases have come to completion, we should know how to let go and move on. Letting go is not betrayal. It is deep gratitude. acknowledging that it helped us grow and that now it's time to set it down. You may have faced failure, hurt, or lost things no one wishes for, but clinging to that suffering only makes you relive the pain again and again. Like carrying the raft, every step grows heavier. Instead, learn to look back, reflect, draw the lesson, and then bravely set it down. Only when you can let go are you truly free to go farther. Like Alara in the story of impermanence, she once suffered from the pursuit of perfection, smashing every jar over a tiny crack. When she realized that those very cracks, gilded with gold, became the jar's unique radiance, she understood that life need not be perfect to be beautiful. Likewise, your mistakes do not make you a failure. They are the necessary cracks through which light enters, giving you the chance to grow deeper and wiser. Start with small things with each in-breath. Be aware you are receiving new life. With each out-breath, practice releasing a bit of tension and worry. Just a few minutes of mindfulness each day will lighten and clear the mind. This is not theory, but direct experience. Scientists have also shown that when we focus on the breath, the brain reduces stress activity and strengthens regions related to calm. That is proof of the power of letting go. And when you no longer cling to a narrow self-forgiveness and compassion come more easily. You no longer fixate on winning and losing or saving face. Instead, you simply want others to be at peace. That very wish for peace nourishes your own happiness. When your heart is light, compassion naturally flows, and your life becomes a testament to true freedom, the freedom that comes from letting go at the right time. Letting go is not rejecting life, nor turning your back on what you've been through. On the contrary, letting go allows you to live more fully and lightly. Imagine, after crossing the river and setting down the raft, your shoulders are freed, and your eyes can lift to the wide sky. When the bird releases the stone, it can spread its wings and soar in its native freedom. When you release painful memories and the mental burdens no longer bind you, you discover the present is full of chances to love and be happy. Many people mistake letting go for giving up, thinking only the weak surrender. But the truth is, the opposite. Letting go requires courage. Courage to admit something has fulfilled its role. Courage to set down what no longer fits so your feet can continue forward. Letting go is not weakness. It is the strength of a mind that knows what it needs and is ready to advance. When we learn to let go, the mind becomes spacious and light. From the emptiness we feared as loss, a new source of energy arises, metta loving kindness. If you still clutch resentment and attachment, loving kindness cannot sprout like seeds in barren soil. But when you set things down and free yourself from the weight of anger and suffering, the soil of the heart turns fertile. From there, unconditional love can be born. Nurture. Loving kindness, accept imperfections and vulnerabilities, and let that love extend to others. When you are no longer preoccupied with winning or preserving a small self, you find it easier to empathize and forgive. And the light in your heart, once kindled by loving kindness, spreads to countless beings like a candle that can light innumerable other candles without diminishing itself. Letting go is the path that opens for that love to shine. Throughout the path of study and practice, there is a profoundly important virtue the Buddha continually emphasized: loving kindness metta. This is not merely simple affection. It is a wondrous power capable of healing wounds of the heart, transforming suffering, and changing both you and the world around you. When many people hear the word loving kindness, they immediately think of self-sacrifice for others, helping sentient beings, and sharing with those who are suffering. That is the core, and it is also the foundation that nourishes a noble heart. For a truly loving, kind heart can open to all beings without distinction between near and far, without clinging to who is worthy or not. A lamp, when it shines, illuminates everywhere without choosing. A stream, when it flows, refreshes meadows, trees, and even parched ground. Likewise, true loving kindness is love without conditions and without expectation of return. It exists like the breath, like sunlight, embracing and abundant. Therefore, loving kindness is not the forced effort to become a good person. It is the natural expression of a heart that has awakened. When the mind opens, that love naturally flows cool, unconditional, and unforced, spreading to all beings like an endless stream. Long ago, in an ancient monastery deep in the forest, there was a young novice named Nilan. Nilan was known for diligence and great aspiration. He longed for the day he might touch enlightenment to bring benefit to all beings. But precisely because of that aspiration, he became too harsh with himself. At the slightest impure thought, a hasty word, or an action not quite complete, he would blame himself relentlessly. Inside him, a judging voice kept saying, "I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy." The abbot, an elder teacher seasoned in practice, saw the tension in Nilan's eyes. He knew that if this continued, the flame of practice in the boy would soon burn out. One day, the teacher called Nilan over and gently instructed, "From today on each day, you are to walk in the forest, and as you walk, recite this, 'May I be joyful, may I be at peace.'" Nilan was surprised, and resistance rose within him. He thought, "Why wish this for myself? Isn't a practitioner supposed to care for all beings first? Isn't praying for myself selfish?" So, although he obeyed, he repeated the phrase mechanically, without feeling, without faith. Day after day, Nilan walked through the forest, repeating the recitation with a dry heart. Until one morning, as sunlight pierced the canopy, he happened upon a fellow monk. His friend was struggling to gather firewood, sweat soaking his shirt hands, trembling with fatigue. Without thinking much, Nilan stepped in and began picking up small sticks alongside him. They worked in silence, only the sound of dry wood tapping and the wind whispering through the trees. In that moment, something unusual happened. As their hands worked together and the heavy task lightened through sharing, Nilan's heart softened. A smile appeared on his lips, not forced, but genuine, gentle, and clear. In that smile, Nilan suddenly understood only when he stopped judging himself and learned to love himself could peace arise. And when peace filled his heart, love for others flowed naturally, no longer forced. From that day on, each step in the forest, Nilan no longer recited mechanically. He whispered slowly, "May I be joyful, may I be at peace." With each word, his heart grew softer. He no longer saw himself as a failure, but as a companion in need of understanding. From that gentleness, love spread wide like a still lake beginning to reflect the moon. As time passed, Nilan changed. His eyes grew kind, his voice warm, his steps steady. All the brothers in the monastery felt the freshness in him. From someone who tormented himself, Nilan became a monk full of loving kindness, and that love continued to spread, nourishing anyone fortunate enough to meet him. Thus, from a recitation that once seemed meaningless, Nilan found the key to open his own heart. If loving kindness is understood only as giving outward, it can easily become a burden. You may try to help others, but if your heart is still full of judgment, harboring anger and blame toward yourself, then that love is like a muddy stream. Such water, when it flows outward, not only fails to nourish the fields, but may even make them wither. Imagine a stream that begins from a pure spring inside the mountain. That clean water flows out, nourishing the fields, making flowers bloom and birds return. By contrast, if the source is already turbid, the flow carries pollution, harming life along the way. Humans are the same. If within you there is only resentment, self-contempt, or self-punishment, how can the flow of love truly be cool and refreshing when given? It will always carry conditions, calculations, and even fatigue and bitterness. But when you learn to cultivate loving kindness for yourself, meaning you know how to forgive your own mistakes, smile at your weaknesses, and care for body and mind, with kindness and patience, your inner life becomes a clear spring. From there, love flows naturally, unconditionally, without strain. Anyone who encounters you will feel that coolness like walking on green grass, freshly watered by a mountain stream. That is the power of loving kindness. It does not begin by forcing yourself to become good, but from purity of heart. When your inner stream is truly clear, love spreads by itself, nourishing all beings without effort. Today, science also shows that when people practice loving kindness, the brain activates regions related to happiness and social connection. A study at Stanford University found that after just 2 weeks of daily loving kindness meditation, participants significantly reduced stress, increased empathy, and improved relationships. What modern scientists measure with instruments the Buddha taught thousands of years ago, loving kindness not only benefits others, but first of all heals you. From Nilan's story, we can draw many profoundly practical lessons, not only for monastics, but for anyone living in the world. For loving kindness, metta is not a distant concept. It is an energy you can cultivate each day in every breath and every word. Each day, set aside a short time, just a few minutes, to quietly offer blessings to yourself. You can sit still, place a hand on your chest, and gently recite, "May I be joyful, may I be at peace." It sounds simple, but that small practice is a great foundation. Do not rush to call it selfish. In truth, when your body and mind are healthy, when you can give yourself peace, you have the energy to love, listen, and support others. A lamp cannot shine if it has run out of oil, and a weary heart struggles to spread gentleness. After offering blessings to yourself, extend loving kindness to those close to you. Parents, children, friends, your partner. Quietly recite, "May my parents be joyful. May my children be joyful. May my friends be joyful." Practice this way. You will notice something remarkable. Relationships in your family and circle grow gentler and less tense because each thought and glance from you carries loving energy. Once the heart of loving kindness has widened, the next step is to direct it to those you do not know, your neighbor quietly tending the garden, a co-worker at the office, even a stranger you pass on the street. These steps carry you farther on the path because your love now extends beyond the small circle of me and family. It touches humanity and all beings sharing this earth. However, the hardest and most important is when you can quietly send blessings even to those who have hurt you. Try saying in your heart, "May you be joyful, may you be at peace." At first, your heart may resist because painful memories do not fade easily. But be patient. The moment you cross the wall of hatred is the moment you are truly liberated. Remember, forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means no longer letting old wounds control your present. At work, instead of fierce competition or undermining colleagues, try generating loving kindness. May my co-workers also succeed. This wish does not reduce what is yours. On the contrary, it frees you from jealousy and pointless comparisons, allowing you to focus on your own growth. In the family, instead of criticism, try a sentence full of empathy. "I understand you. I wish you peace." With just a small change in words, you will see the atmosphere transform. A tense home can soften because a kind word can move hearts 100 times more than a reproach. Many people mistake loving kindness for weakness, for letting others take advantage or hurt you. The truth is the exact opposite. Loving kindness is strength. It is not softness. It is deep resilience. Only when you have inner stability can you dare to open your heart and love even with the risk of being hurt. The weak often build walls to hide fear. The strong can open doors because they are no longer ruled by fear. The Buddha taught, "The greatest victory is not conquering others, but conquering yourself." When you cultivate loving kindness, you are overcoming anger, impulsiveness, and inner darkness. You overcome the small ego that always wants to divide self and other, win and lose, better and worse. That is true strength. In a world increasingly full of tension, competition, and division, loving kindness becomes an essential medicine for healing. Have you noticed that many people live in crowds, yet still feel lonely? What they lack is not the presence of others, but connection from the heart. When you listen with a loving heart, even once the person before you no longer feels alone. When you act from love, a small gesture, a hug, a kind check-in can change someone's entire day. When a community practices loving kindness together, connection gradually replaces suspicion and division. If an entire society cultivates loving kindness, violence and hatred gradually fade, making room for peace and harmony. Loving kindness is not just a moral quality. It is a power that can transform the world, beginning with you, then spreading to each person and each community. If you wish to help build a better world, you don't need grand actions. Each day, simply begin with yourself, one mindful breath, one blessing, one loving act. In doing so, you become part of the current of loving kindness, nourishing life for all beings. In the morning upon waking, many of us habitually grab the phone to check messages, emails, or news. But if you change slightly, pause, take a deep breath, and quietly wish, "Today may everyone be joyful," you will feel the difference. Such a simple, gentle wish is like a pure drop of water to begin the day. It not only nourishes your heart, it sets the tone for how you live throughout that day. At work, stress is unavoidable. Instead of letting pressure weigh down your mind, try pausing for a moment, breathing deeply and silently, sending a wish of peace to yourself and your colleagues. Just one breath, just one wholesome intention can ease tension and open a gentler space to continue working effectively. At night, before sleep, recall someone you met that day, a friend, a co-worker, even a stranger. Quietly, wish them peace, and you will feel your heart soften and your sleep grow more restful. This is not merely a habit. It is a way to nourish loving kindness daily so that love gradually becomes a natural part of life. Practicing in this way helps us see that loving kindness is not only outward care, it is also inner nourishment. It brings more joy to our hearts, helps us connect more deeply with others, and makes us stronger in adversity. However, if we cultivate loving kindness without balance, we can fall into extremes, either indulging ourselves too much or sacrificing for others to the point of exhaustion. The Buddha taught the middle way, the path that avoids both extremes, neither indulgence in pleasure nor harsh self-mortification. The middle way is the firm foundation for sustaining love over the long term. Only when you live in balance can your love spread steadily without force and without depletion. The middle way helps you care for yourself while opening to others, so that loving kindness truly becomes a nurturing, transformative power rather than a burden. You see, by starting with small daily habits, morning, noon, and night, the love within you will be nourished. Combined with the spirit of the middle way, loving kindness is no longer fragile, but a bright, enduring flame, lighting your path and warming those around you. The middle way is not some lofty philosophy for debate. It is a living, practical compass for your everyday life. In daily living, we easily fall into two extremes, indulging in pleasure-chasing sensual desires, or forcing ourselves into harsh asceticism, pushing until we're depleted. Neither path leads to lasting peace. The middle way is the art of balance, knowing when to stop and when to advance, knowing how to nourish body and mind just enough to keep going. When you live with the spirit of the middle way, you are neither swept away by ambition nor weighed down by self-mortification. It is a steady path that lets you live fully in the world while moving forward on the path of practice. Long ago, before awakening the Buddha, then Prince Siddhartha passed through both extremes of life. He was born amid palaces and splendor, surrounded by luxury and power. The finest pleasures of the time were offered to him: lavish feasts, music, and dance attendants ready to please. For many, that would seem the pinnacle of happiness. Yet deep in his heart, he felt a vast emptiness. All those pleasures were just a coat of paint, unable to cover the ache of birth, aging, illness, and death. He realized that happiness based on material things is fragile and never truly enough. From there, he crossed into the opposite extreme, ascetic self-denial. He left the palace for the deep forest, training with austere practitioners. Day after day, he fasted until his body was skin and bone. At times, he even held his breath, trying to stamp out basic needs, hoping to reach enlightenment by tormenting himself. To others, he looked like a gaunt shadow, barely breathing. Yet after years of this, he saw that self-mortification does not bring wisdom. When the body is wrecked and the mind is clouded, how can truth be seen clearly? At that impasse, a seemingly small event became a turning point. One day, sitting by a river in quiet, he overheard a music teacher instructing a student to tune a stringed instrument. The teacher said, "If the string is too tight, it breaks. If it's too loose, it's slack. Only when it's just right does the sound ring true and carry far. Those simple words struck like lightning out of a clear sky. His heart shook awake. The true path lies neither in indulgence nor in extreme asceticism. Both are chains that lead to suffering. The path to awakening is found in balance, the middle way. From that moment, Siddhartha chose to abandon both extremes. He chose the just enough path, eating moderately, to keep the body healthy, meditating, to keep the mind clear, living mindfully in each moment. Upon that foundation of the middle way, he walked steadily to the Bodhi tree and attained enlightenment, becoming the Buddha. That story leaves us a profound lesson. Happiness is found neither in indulgence nor in self-denial, but in balance in each action, each choice, each breath. The middle way is not distant philosophy. It is the art of daily living. See how strings only sing when tuned just right. Likewise, your life truly shines only when you keep its rhythm in balance. Pause and picture a small candle. If you blow too hard, the flame goes out at once. If you burn it in a rush so it flares wildly, it soon dies, leaving smoke and half-melted wax. But if the candle is tended just right, the flame burns evenly and softly, lighting a whole room through the night. We are the same. If we abandon ourselves to excess chasing instant gratification, we quickly drain body and mind. Such brief thrills burn bright, but fade fast, leaving emptiness behind. On the other hand, if we choose harsh asceticism, forcing the body beyond its limits, it's like snuffing out our natural vitality. A depleted body cannot sustain a lucid mind. Only by living in balance, eating moderately, resting, well keeping the mind neither lax nor harsh, can we sustain long-term strength. This is the middle way the Buddha opened. Balance is not a weak compromise. It is a firm foundation that carries us through a long journey steady amid life's storms. Today, modern science also affirms the value of the middle way. A study from Harvard University shows that people who maintain moderate eating, balanced sleep, and a measured pace of life live longer and reduce disease risk many times over compared to those who often go to extremes, either indulgence or excessive harshness toward the body. This aligns remarkably with what the Buddha taught over 25 centuries ago. Any excess, whether pleasure or asceticism, leads to suffering. Only the middle way opens to peace and wisdom. The middle way is not a concept reserved for monastics. It is a principle anyone in any circumstance needs in order to keep life balanced and sustainable. The Buddha called it the path beyond two extremes, overindulgence and self-mortification. But look closely and you will see. It is also the key to peace in our everyday routines. In eating, ask yourself, what happens if you let yourself eat too much, indulging every craving? The body gets sick, the mind grows dull, and the joy of eating turns into misery. Conversely, if you eat too little and abuse your body, your strength runs out. You can neither work, nor practice, nor care for others. Eating just enough, able to enjoy food without turning it into attachment, that is the middle way in eating. Work is the same. If you throw yourself into work like a machine, you will eventually burn out, lose your health, and lose your joy in living. If you slack off, you miss opportunities, your talents wither, and self-respect fades. Working at a sustainable pace, mindfully balancing rest and contribution, this preserves both health and success without sacrificing inner peace. In relationships, extremes cause suffering. If you love to excess clinging to the other, love turns into attachment and selfishness, suffocating both people. If you are too cold and indifferent, you cause pain and isolate yourself. Only balanced love, tender yet spacious, guided by understanding and respect, truly nourishes happiness for both. Even in practice, the middle way is central. If you crave results and rush toward enlightenment, your mind fills with agitation and disappointment. If you give up and drift, you remain lost in ignorance. Only steady, patient steps, neither too tight nor too loose, allow mindfulness to endure and lead you to genuine peace. Thus, the middle way is not remote theory, but an art of living. It teaches us to keep harmony in every area, eating, working, loving, and practicing. Walking this path, you'll find balance not only reduces suffering, it also clarifies the mind and brings a more harmonious, happy life. Modern life is full of extremes. Some are swept into the chase for money, working day and night, trading health, family, and peace for numbers in an account, only to discover, when illness comes, that money cannot buy a breath. Others rush to pleasure, drowning in short-lived enjoyments, spending, eating, entertainment, forgetting responsibilities to themselves and others. The joy fades fast, leaving emptiness. Still others torment themselves with harsh perfectionism, never allowing mistakes, living with constant tension until they lose the simple joys of life. Without the middle way, we remain trapped in a cycle, work until exhaustion, indulge, then feel empty, practice, then grow disheartened. The middle way is the exit. It is not a shallow compromise, but the wisdom to know what is enough, so you don't stray too far in any direction. Only by keeping balance can you walk a whole lifetime steadily, living peacefully, happily, and meaningfully. Each morning, before being swept into the rush of work, take just a few minutes to breathe deeply and remind yourself, today, I will live in just enough, not excessive, not extreme. This reminder is like a cord that keeps you from being pulled too far one way. At work, learn to watch your inner state. When are you so tense that you're rigid? And when are you letting yourself procrastinate too much? That awareness helps you adjust your pace so work neither consumes you nor leaves you exhausted. In the family, it is the same. In anger, we easily speak hurtful words. In indifference, we make loved ones feel abandoned. The middle way teaches us to speak just enough and act with measure, so relationships can be nourished over time. In this way, the middle way is not distant theory. It is present in each step, each bite, each word. It is the art of mindful living that keeps us balanced amid life's many paths. The middle way teaches us to live in balance, avoiding extremes. And living in that balance, you will discover a deeper truth. The I you speak of is not truly fixed. When you're happy, you say, I am happy. When you're sad, you say, I am sad. But happiness and sadness change. The body changes. Thoughts change moment by moment. So where is that I? This is the doorway to a profound teaching. The Buddha opened non-self anatta. The self we usually cling to is really just a temporary combination of many factors. This body did not arise on its own. It exists thanks to our parents, to food, water, air, sunlight, and countless other conditions. This mind does not exist independently. Either it is shaped by education, culture, living circumstances, and experiences of joy and sorrow. If any one of those factors changes, what we call me changes immediately. You can see this clearly in your own body. Scientists have shown that the body's cells are constantly renewing. Within just a few weeks, most of your skin cells have been replaced. Within a few months, your blood is regenerated. Within about 10 years, nearly your entire skeleton has changed. Thus, the body you have today is not the body of 10 years ago. And yet we stubbornly believe that I is a fixed, unchanging entity. Understanding this truth, you see that self is only a label and illusion we construct for convenience of recognition, but it has no eternal essence. Seeing this, we cling less to me and mine. We compare less, we are less rigid, and we live more freely. This is the key to ending suffering, no longer burdened by defending a self that has never truly existed independently. Long ago, in a small temple nestled in a peaceful valley, there was a young novice named Joran. From the moment he entered the monastery, Joran was known to be unusually diligent, more so than many of his peers. Each morning, he rose very early to sweep the courtyard heat water and prepare incense and lamps for the ceremony. By day, he studied sutras, practiced calligraphy, and did seated meditation. At night, when the others were asleep, he lingered under the oil lamp to chant a few more rounds. Yet despite all his effort, a deep unease grew in Joran's heart. While chanting, he felt his voice was not as deep and resonant as that of the elder brothers. While meditating, his mind seemed constantly restless, never truly still. While working, though, he tried his best. He still compared himself with others and sighed, judging himself inadequate and untalented. Gradually, Joran sank into inferiority. He thought, maybe I wasn't born to practice. Maybe I will never attain the way. One day the abbot, a gentle and learned master, called Joran in. Seeing the gloom in the boy's eyes, the abbot quietly went into his room. When he returned, he carried an exquisitely crafted wooden model of a horse-drawn cart and set it before Joran. The master said softly, "Look closely at this cart." Joran examined it carefully. It was indeed a complete model: round wheels, a firmly fixed axle, a canopy, a wooden frame, and a pull rope. It looked like a miniature cart that could run on the road. The abbot began slowly taking the parts apart. First, the wheel. He held it up and asked, "Is this the cart?" Joran shook his head. "No, it's just a wheel." The abbot removed the axle and asked, "Then is the axle the cart?" "No, it's just an axle." And so it went: frame, canopy, pull rope. Each part was taken off. On the table remained only a pile of pieces no longer resembling the original cart. Smiling, the abbot looked at Joran. "Do you see? When each part is separated, there is nothing that is the cart. The cart is only a name we give to the temporary combination of many components. No single part is a cart by itself. Only when they gather together do we call it a cart." Hearing this, Joran was stunned. A spark flashed in his mind. What he had been calling me, what he had judged as inferior and a failure, had no fixed essence either. This body, these feelings, perceptions, mental formations, consciousness, all are merely compounded elements. If you separate them, there is nothing that is truly me. Joran bowed his head, feeling light. For years, he had tormented and blamed himself because he thought there was a self that had to be perfect, talented, and more diligent than others. Now he understood that self was only an illusion fabricated by the mind. It was like the cart, just a combination, nothing truly enduring. Joran's eyes began to brighten. He looked up at the master and quietly smiled. In that smile, for the first time in many months, there was no self-reproach, no disappointment, only gentle ease. He had understood that only when we stop clinging to a rigid self are we truly free. From that day on, Joran still chanted, still meditated, still worked. But instead of blaming himself, he practiced accepting each breath, each mistake, each step. He no longer demanded perfection. He simply showed up and practiced day by day. And in that very moment, the path to awakening opened before him, quiet and steady. Try lifting your eyes to the sky and watching a cloud. At first it is billowy and white. Then the wind blows, the sun rises, and the cloud gradually disperses. But the cloud does not disappear. It transforms into rain, falls onto fields, seeps into the earth, becomes rivers and streams, becoming water that nourishes all beings. The cloud is not lost. It merely changes form and continues in a new cycle. In the same way, what you habitually call me seemingly fixed and unchanging is actually a continuous flow, endlessly transforming. Your body, every cell, each breath, every thought is changing moment by moment. The me you believe to be you today is in truth not the same as the me of yesterday and will be different from the me of tomorrow. There is no fixed entity for you to cling to. This is the profound truth the Buddha called non-self anatta. This is not only an abstract doctrine, it is also supported by modern science. Neuroscience shows that the self is in fact a product of the brain, composed of countless memories, experiences, emotions, and biological processes. When a small region of the brain is damaged, the sense of self can change completely. Some people after brain injury forget their own names, fail to recognize loved ones, even undergo personality changes. This shows that the self we cling to is not a fixed entity, but only a temporary combination of many factors, scientific evidence aligning with what the Buddha taught more than 2,000 years ago. When you realize that I is only a stream of conditioned processes, you feel much lighter. You understand there is no need to defend a fragile self. Praise and blame, gain and loss, they touch only a small part of that stream, never its essence. Why suffer and strain to protect an illusion? Look at everyday life. How much of your suffering comes from defending the so-called me? When someone insults you, anger flares because you think you've been wounded. When you fail, sadness comes because you think I am incompetent. When you succeed, pride arises because you think I am exceptional. But if you contemplate deeply, you'll see none of that is ever truly you. They are fleeting fragments in an endless flow. So instead of being imprisoned by the notion, I must be like this, I must not be like that, you open a wider space for change and growth. You begin to accept that yesterday you might have been clumsy, today you may be better, and tomorrow different again. Everything transforms. Precisely because of this, you can change, improve, and become a better person. For example, when you look in the mirror and see a few gray hairs or wrinkles, don't rush into sadness. Remember that this body is temporary, changing day by day. It is like the cloud shifting from one form to another, yet part of a continuous flow. Or when you blame yourself for a mistake, remind yourself, what I call me is only a stream. Yesterday was different. Today is different. And tomorrow will be different. Practiced this way, your heart grows lighter. You are no longer so attached to the image of self you once imagined. When someone insults you, you can pause and ask, what part of me did that touch? Is that really me? You will surely see those words only brush the outer shell, not the essence. Seeing this anger dissolves like clouds parting before the sun. Non-self does not mean denying your existence. It shows that you are not a rigid, unchanging block. You are a living stream with the capacity for unending transformation. That is the true hope and strength. If everything were fixed, nothing could change. But because everything arises from conditions, you can transform, mature, and move toward clarity and compassion. Moreover, when you stop clinging to me, you recognize your deep interconnection with all things. You understand that this body is nourished by grains of rice, by sunlight and rain, by the labor of countless people. You understand that the breath you inhale carries the gift of plants, and the breath you exhale nourishes life around you. Seeing this, you no longer feel alone. Instead, a vast love and wide gratitude open within. From this insight into non-self compassion naturally arises. When the hard boundary between me and others softens, forgiveness and tolerance come easily, and you wish peace for all. When others suffer, you feel their pain as your own. When they are happy, your heart grows light as well. Thus, non-self is not just a profound philosophy. It is a living practice. Each time you release a fixation, you take another step on the path of freedom. Each time you pause to breathe and remind yourself, I am only a stream, you open a vast space for faith, love, and wisdom. This is true freedom. Freedom from the shackles created by the mind itself. And from this foundation of non-self, we truly touch another important teaching, dependent origination, pratyasamutpada. When we see there is no independent self, we realize that everything in this world arises in dependence on everything else. But that is a new door, another journey we will walk together. When you understand non-self, you see there is no independent I. But if there is no independent I, how do you exist? The answer lies in another teaching, dependent origination, pratyasamutpada. All things arise in dependence upon one another. This body depends on air, water, and food. This mind depends on parents, teachers, friends, and society. Just as a single grain of rice contains sunlight, rain, and the farmer's hands, you too are the result of countless interdependent conditions. Have you ever sat perfectly still holding a single grain of white rice in your hand and asked yourself, what made this grain of rice come to be? At first glance, it seems like an ordinary, simple, tiny grain. But when your mind settles and your gaze deepens, you'll see that inside that grain, a vast universe is contained. This is the doorway into the teaching of dependent origination, one of the deepest and most wondrous foundations the Buddha revealed to humankind. He taught, when this is, that is. When this arises, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. These words seem simple, yet they are a complete picture of the nature of life. Nothing exists independently. All things rely on connect with condition and give rise to one another. Thus, to understand dependent origination is to understand the invisible web that binds everything in life. And when you truly see it, you no longer feel lonely or isolated. You realize you are an inseparable part of the universe's unfolding. Long ago, in a small monastery hidden among misty mountain slopes, there lived a hermit monk named Seelan. He lived simply and spoke little quietly, meditating, chanting, and eating a single modest meal each day. Seelan's life seemed plain, yet within it lay unfathomable depth. One noon, as the sun climbed high and light filtered through the leaves into the courtyard, Seelan sat alone in his small room. Before him was only a simple bowl of white rice. He lifted the bowl and looked at it for a long time. At first, it was just rice, ordinary food that nourishes the body. But the longer he looked, the more his mind opened, and something strange happened. He began to see the entire universe within that grain of rice. In the tiny grain, Seelan saw the brilliant sun casting its light on the fields day after day. Without the sun, the rice plant could never grow. He saw rains falling patiently from distant clouds, soaking into the earth so seeds could sprout. He saw the wind carrying moisture everywhere, cooling the fields. He saw the farmer's calloused hands, the bent-back sweat soaking into the soil. He saw the gentle, generous earth patiently supporting the little seed until it ripened with grain. But that was not all. Seelan also saw the hands that gathered the harvested rice, milled it into grain, and finally, the person who cooked it, who poured care and love into the pot. Each fragrant, tender grain was the result of countless efforts and countless unnamed factors. And then he realized in this simple bowl of rice, there is not just rice. There is the sun, the rain, the earth, the wind, human beings, so many benevolent conditions present together. He smiled a light yet deep smile. For the first time, he didn't just understand with his mind, he understood with his heart. Nothing in this world exists on its own. No grain of rice, no leaf, no person can stand apart. All things interweave, rely on one another, and together create life. Can you imagine it? By looking deeply into a single grain of rice, you can see a vast portrait of the universe. Every drop of rain, every ray of sunlight, every bead of sweat, every hand, all are there within it. Seelan realized that each time he ate a bowl of rice, he was not just eating to fill his belly. He was receiving the kindness of earth and sky, of all beings. From that day on, rice was never ordinary to Seelan. He honored each grain as he honored the entire web of dependent arising that sustained him. He lived with a vast gratitude, seeing clearly that he had never been alone. Seelan's story startles us awake. We too live within that web, yet we often forget. A grain of rice, a cup of water, a single breath, all are the convergence of many favorable conditions. Without even one factor, nothing appears. Seeing this clearly, your heart will also smile just as Seelan smiled in that moment of awakening. If one morning you step into the garden and see a dewdrop sparkling on the tip of a blade of grass, do you think it exists by itself alone in the universe? In truth, no. The dewdrop appears only when there is the coolness of night, the gentle breath of wind, and the tender blade of grass reaching up to receive it. Dew does not exist apart. It is the result of myriad conditions coming together. Look deeply into a dewdrop and you see the whole sky. Just like the grain of rice in the Zen story within it, there is sunlight, rain, earth the farmer's hands, and the love of the one who cooked it. When you truly recognize this, you understand a simple yet magnificent truth. Nothing in this world exists separately. Everything is connected, interwoven, interdependent. The life you now have, each breath, each step, each smile, depends on countless conditions. You exist not by yourself, but thanks to innumerable contributing factors. From your first cry at birth, you have been cherished by parents, held by family, supported by society, and sheltered by earth and sky. Consider the shoes you are wearing. Do you see them as just a simple object? Look closely, and you'll see a whole world within them. The worker who cut the leather, the one who wove the fabric, the one who stitched each seam, the one who transported them from factory to store, the salesperson who brought them to your hands. Without any one of them, those shoes would never exist. So how can you claim that your life is entirely independent, separate from everything else? What is wondrous is that modern scientific discoveries are gradually approaching the insight of dependent origination. The Buddha realized over 2,000 years ago. Quantum physics shows that not a single fundamental particle exists in isolation. They always exist in interaction, exchanging energy with one another. A particle has meaning only within the entire system. Taken out of that context, it loses its very character. Biology tells a similar story. Scientists have found that the human body is a symbiotic world of trillions of bacteria and microorganisms. They keep our digestion functioning, our immune system balanced, and our bodies healthy. Without them, you cannot exist as a complete individual. This proves a truth. What we call me is not a separate entity, but a complex ecosystem, a living network of dependent conditions. Thus, from the dewdrop on the grass to the grain of rice in the bowl, from the shoes on your feet to each cell in your body, all are whispering the same truth. There is no independent self, no isolated existence. Each time you cling to me and mine, you overlook the entire universe of interbeing that is supporting you. And that illusion of a separate self is the true root of division, suffering, and strife. The Buddha revealed this truth over 2,000 years ago. All things and phenomena arise due to conditions. They have no self-nature and no permanent essence. When you understand this deeply, you feel lighter. Praise and blame touch only a small surface and cannot shake the essence of non-self. Much suffering is born from our efforts to defend an imagined self. But if you see that I is only a dependent arising, you can lay down the burden and open to freedom. And that is the key to liberation. When you no longer clutch the notion of an independent self, you feel intimately connected with all beings. From this gratitude, tolerance and compassion naturally arise. You no longer have to brace yourself against the world. You can relax and smile, walking peacefully within a reality already woven of mutual support. Understanding. Dependent origination is not about memorizing a dry philosophical concept. It is a key for living a path that frees us from the illusion of a separate self, helping us recognize that we are nourished by the entire universe. When you truly see that everything exists because of everything else, you can no longer look at life with indifferent eyes. On the contrary, 3 precious fruits sprout in your heart: gratitude, compassion, and freedom, from the loneliness that weighs on modern life. First comes gratitude. Look back at today's meal within the white rice or the farmer's sweat, sunlight, rain, the hands that transported it, the hands that cooked it. In the house you live in are the efforts of the mason, the brickmaker, the designer, and countless workers you have never met. Even the water you drink is the long journey of clouds, winds, rivers, and mountains. every breath, every small object around you is the result of many conditions. Reflecting like this, you cannot help but feel grateful. Grateful to parents and teachers, to society, and to earth and sky. That gratitude softens the heart, making it humbler and more at peace. From this understanding of dependent origination, compassion naturally arises. When you see that you and others are not separate, that your happiness is bound up with theirs, you will not easily cause harm. How could you speak harshly when you know those words will reverberate back and bring suffering to yourself? How could you be indifferent to another's pain when you know it echoes through the very web of conditions to which you also belong? To plant well-being for others is to plant well-being for yourself. To cause suffering to others is in the end to cause suffering to yourself. This is the essence of compassion. The Buddha taught to love others is also to love yourself. The third fruit dependent origination brings is freedom from loneliness. Loneliness is one of modern life's great sufferings. We can live in a crowd and still feel empty. But when you contemplate dependent origination, you realize that no one is truly alone. With a single breath, you connect to the green trees releasing oxygen. With a sip of water, you connect to the river, the clouds, and the rain. In this very moment, your heart beats, thanks to oxygen and blood and billions of cells working together. At every instant, the entire universe is supporting you. Seeing this loneliness dissolves, replaced by the sense of living in the wide embrace of life. The wonderful thing is that you can practice dependent origination in daily life through very small steps. When eating a bowl of rice, pause for a few seconds and look deeply. See the sunlight, the rain, the farmer's hands, the generous earth. Silently say, "Thank you, earth and sky." Thank you to all the conditions that made this bowl of rice. When drinking a glass of water, remember that within it are clouds, sunshine, and rivers. To drink mindfully is to drink life itself. When meeting someone, try to see them not just as an isolated individual, but as the crystallization of family, culture, society, and environment. Seeing this, you judge less, and empathy naturally blooms. Thus, dependent origination is not an abstract theory, but a practical key to mindful living. It helps us be grateful instead of indifferent, loving instead of harmful, connected instead of lonely. Practiced in small things, life gradually grows lighter and more at ease, because you have merged with the great current of the universe, where no one truly stands alone, and all exist in mutual reliance. Once you have seen dependent origination, you also begin to recognize another truth within this endless web of relation suffering. Two arises dependently. Your suffering does not come only from you. It also comes from surrounding conditions. Just as a grain of rice does not grow by itself, suffering does not appear on its own. It has causes. It has conditions. And precisely because it has causes, suffering can be transformed. This is the next step in the journey. The Buddha pointed out from dependent origination, we come to the truth of suffering dukkha. Suffering is not for pessimism. It is for understanding that only by looking directly into the nature of suffering can we find the path to its end. Have you ever asked yourself why people suffer? Why even when we have all the comforts, material, things, status, and even others' admiration, we still feel uneasy and empty inside? Many think suffering is a punishment from the gods or a cruel accident of fate. But more than 2,000 years ago, the Buddha taught clearly suffering does not come from outside, nor is it handed down by anyone. Suffering is simply the nature of life when our minds are still clinging and attached. When we want everything to stay still, to always go our way to reach absolute perfection, at that very moment, suffering has already arisen. Why? Because the nature of life is change, impermanence. You want to keep your youth, but youth must give way to old age. You want love to stay forever passionate, but feelings naturally rise and fall. You want the body to be healthy forever, but this body follows the law of birth, aging, illness, and death. The tighter you cling, the more you suffer. Suffering does not come from the world out there. It arises from within the mind, from attachment to what we don't want to lose, and resistance to what we don't want to face. When we understand this, we can begin the path of liberation. Instead of trying to control the world, we learn to transform our own mind. The story of the artisan Mira helps us see this clearly. Long ago, in a riverside village famous for weaving, there was a weaver named Mira. From childhood, she was bound to the loom and spools of many-colored thread. She was considered a rare talent, for the cloth her hands produced was not only durable and exquisitely made, but also carried a strange vitality. People in the region would whisper, "Mira's fabric is not just for wearing, it touches the soul." Yet amid the praise, Mira lived in constant anxiety. Each time she finished a piece of cloth instead of joy, she saw only flaws others never noticed. A slightly crooked line of thread or a color patch not perfectly blended was enough to torment her. She set a harsh pressure on herself. Tomorrow must be better than today, and today was never enough. Fear of failure clung to her nightly. She tossed in bed, the sound of the loom still echoing in her head. Sleep was incomplete. Her eyes were ringed with dark circles. Her hands trembled from exhaustion. Outsiders saw only perfect fabrics, but none knew that inside Mira was a heart bound by worry and fear. At last, unable to bear it, Mira went to an elderly nun who lived in a small temple at the edge of the village. Bowing her head, she spoke of the burden she carried, of the fatigue that felt like her heart was breaking into pieces. The nun sat silently, her kind eyes on Mira, then softly said, "You are not the weaver. You are only the loom. Life weaves itself." Those words left Mira stunned. She didn't understand. All her life she had lived with the craft. Everyone praised her skillful hands. How could one say she was not the weaver? But in the nights that followed, when Mira returned to the loom, those words sounded again in her mind. She began to notice differently. When her feet pressed the pedal and her hands passed the shuttle, she realized she was not the only presence there. Where did the colored threads come from? From cotton grown by farmers, from sunlight and rain that nourished the fields. Who made this loom? Were the patterns on the fabric merely from her hands, or also from memory, emotion, and the many experiences she had lived? Mira paused and placed her hand on the half-woven cloth. In that moment, she saw clearly life itself was weaving through her. She was not the only one carrying the load. She was only a part of that vast flow. Like the loom, the shuttle, the cotton, everything was working together. From that day on, Mira changed. Each time she sat at the loom, she was no longer haunted by perfection. The lines of weaving were no longer a burden, but a natural melody. She let go of anxiety and allowed each thread to join harmoniously into the cloth. From then on, Mira's textiles were not only technically beautiful, but also radiated calm and serenity. People said that when they wore her fabric, they felt a gentle current as if being embraced by peace. Mira finally understood her suffering did not come from weaving, but from clinging to the idea that I am the one who creates everything. When she let go of that notion, she became light and free. From there, her hands wove cloth that not only covered the body, but also touched the heart. This story speaks a great truth. Suffering does not come from work or circumstances, but from how we cling to results. When we identify ourselves with what we do, we turn ourselves into our own burden. Mira realized she was not the weaver, but only the loom. Likewise, you are not your roles, titles, or achievements. You are a part of life's vast unfolding. Understanding this, you will feel lighter, and suffering will gradually fade. In Buddhism, suffering is not meant to make you pessimistic. On the contrary, recognizing the nature of suffering is the first doorway to liberation. The Buddha called this the Four Noble Truths: the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to cessation. What matters is not denying suffering, but looking straight at it, seeing it clearly, and understanding its roots. When you understand, you are no longer bound by it. Have you noticed that most suffering in life comes from comparison and expectation? When you want to be better than others, you suffer. When you fear being inferior, you suffer. When you cling to a joy and fear it will disappear, you also suffer. But the nature of life is change. Happiness comes, then happiness goes. Success comes, then success goes. If you keep trying to hold on, you only hurt yourself more. A beautiful image can help a rainbow. A rainbow only appears when rain and sunshine are both present. If there is only sun without rain, there's no rainbow. If there's only rain without sun, there's no rainbow either. That beauty arises from the combination of two seemingly opposite elements. Your life is the same. Happiness cannot exist without having known unease. Joy cannot be deep without having known suffering. It's that interweaving which gives life its color. Today, science also shows that stress and suffering are not wholly bad. Neuroscientists have found that when the brain goes through difficult periods, it forms new neural connections that help people learn, adapt, and grow. In other words, without suffering, you wouldn't develop the capacity to mature and become steadier. This aligns completely with the Buddha's teaching. Suffering is real, but within suffering lies the opportunity for transformation. So how can you practice with suffering in daily life? First, start by recognizing suffering. When you feel uneasy, don't rush to push it away. Sit down, breathe deeply, and name it. This is anxiety. This is fear. This is clinging. By simply calling it by its true name, you've already walked half the path. Like when you're lost in a forest, the first step is to know where you are. Second practice, accepting suffering as a natural part of life. Don't treat suffering as an enemy. It's like rain. Sometimes it makes you wet and cold, but thanks to rain, the earth is fertile and plants are green. If you only want sun and no rain, you will never see a rainbow. Learn to smile even in difficulty, because that is the soil where happiness takes root. Third practice, letting go of attachment. When your mind clings to a result, an image or an expectation, suffering appears. But when you release, you find freedom. Like Mira, when she no longer thought she had to weave to prove her worth, she could finally weave with her whole heart. Letting go is not abandoning. It is knowing when to set something down. Fourth practice, gratitude even toward suffering. Ask yourself, without this suffering, what would I learn? Each pain is a lesson. Each unease is a reminder. If you are grateful even for difficulties, you will no longer fear them. Fifth, apply mindfulness to every experience. When suffering arises, return to the breath. When you breathe in, know you are breathing in. When you breathe out, know you are breathing out. The breath is the anchor that helps you stand firm amid the waves. You can also practice in the smallest things. When drinking a glass of water, recognize that it contains clouds, rain, and earth. When walking, recognize that each step is connecting with the solid ground. When speaking, recognize that your words can bring joy or pain to others. These practices are small, but together they can change your life. You see, suffering is no longer frightening when you look at it with the eye of wisdom. It is just one part of life's larger picture. And if you live with suffering mindfully, you will find freedom right within it. In life, each of us has had moments when the darkness of suffering covered everything. It may have been a loss, a betrayal, a sudden illness, or a failure that felt impossible to rise from. In those times, did your heart feel heavy? Your mind spinning, everything falling into a dark void? You search for a way out, but the more you search, the more stuck you feel. There is a story simple, yet carrying a profound truth the Buddha taught. Long ago, a man lost his way in a deep forest. Night fell, and thick darkness spread everywhere. He trembled, his heart pounding, flooded with panic. Each step seemed to slip into nothingness. He didn't know whether ahead lay a cliff or a path. In the midst of despair, he remembered he had a small candle. With shaking hands, he hurried to light it. When the flame rose, the darkness didn't vanish completely. The forest was still vast and shadowed, the thickets still frightening. Strange sounds still echoed. But that tiny light was enough to reveal a path enough to show where it was safe to place his feet. And from there, he continued forward. Suffering in your life is like that dark forest. You may not be able to banish all the darkness or erase the pain at once. But if you know how to light a candle of mindfulness in your heart, that light is enough for you to see your way. This is what the Buddha taught. Within suffering there is always the chance for awakening. Thanks to darkness, you recognize the value of light. Thanks to wounds, you have the chance to look deeply and heal. Have you noticed how a small crack in a wall can be the place where light enters? Suffering is like that. It's not only a fracture in life, it is also the opening through which the light of wisdom and love can seep in. If you rush to plaster over the crack and cover the pain, you miss the chance for light to enter. But if you dare to sit still and look straight at suffering, you'll see it become a quiet teacher helping you grow. In modern psychology, scientists have identified a phenomenon called post-traumatic growth after adversity. Many people after severe shocks develop a new inner strength. They become deeper, more appreciative of life, and more capable of empathy. This is very close to the Buddha's teaching. Suffering is not the enemy. It is the doorway to the path of awakening. Think about the times you have suffered. Perhaps then you felt collapsed. But looking back, do you see that thanks to those events, you learned patience, understanding, and greater love? Suffering, if used well, becomes fuel for awakening. How can you begin to practice first? You need to change how you see. Instead of viewing suffering only as an enemy, to eliminate, see it as a reminder. It's time to stop, listen, and turn inward. Each time you face suffering, you can practice 3 steps. First, recognize the emotion. Don't deny it or force yourself to be strong immediately. Name it. This is sadness. This is anxiety. This is anger. Naming it is the first spark that lights the candle of mindfulness. Second, breathe in and out deeply. Let the breath become the small candle that steadies you in the dark. When you focus on your breathing, the mind chases panic less, and you see the path ahead more clearly. Third, seek the lesson within the suffering. Every event carries a message. A loss can remind you to cherish what you have. A failure can teach humility and perseverance. A wound can open your heart to others' pain. You can practice simply by writing, "What is this pain teaching me?" Let that question lead you instead of only lamenting or blaming. Gradually, the darkness in the mind grows less dense. Remember, the light you need is not far away. It is in your own heart, waiting to be lit. Once you understand that suffering is only part of the path, you will fear it less. And then instead of resenting the dark, you are grateful for it, because thanks to darkness, you cherish each small ray of light. Try a short practice right now. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine a candle in your heart. No matter how many difficulties you face, that candle can be lit. It's small, but bright enough to illuminate part of the path. Each mindful breath makes the flame brighter, and little by little you will find you are no longer lost. Looking back, you will realize that it was precisely the periods of suffering that brought you closer to the truth. Like a wall with a crack, the light needs an opening to enter. Likewise, a wounded heart learns how to open wider. Suffering, therefore, is not a period. It is a comma, a change in direction, an opportunity to pause and look deeply. Without suffering, you would never thirst for the path of liberation. Without suffering, the Buddha would not have left the Golden Palace to seek the truth. Suffering is the bell of awakening, reminding you that it's time to return to yourself. And to truly move through suffering, you need a key: mindfulness. Mindfulness is the light that guides the way, helping you see suffering clearly, without being drowned by it. Mindfulness is the ability to live fully in each moment, to see that even within suffering, you can still find peace. Have you ever tried doing something with a scattered mind? For example, when you're eating, but your head is busy worrying about tomorrow's work. When you're talking with a loved one, but your eyes are still glued to your phone. Or when you're walking, but your heart is stuck on things that already happened. In those moments, are you really living in the present? Are you truly savoring the food, listening to your loved one, or feeling your feet touch the ground? Most of the time, we don't live in the present. We're swept away by the past and worried about the future. That's why we so often feel tired, stressed, and uneasy. The Buddha taught mindfulness is returning to the present awake and non-judgmental. It is the ability to come back to this moment, to the breath, the body, and the mind, to clearly see what is here without rushing to label it or react. When you have mindfulness, you are truly living. When you don't, you're merely existing like a machine repeating habits. There is a story about an archer named Aya. Long ago, in a faraway land, there was a girl named Aya. From a young age, she showed a rare talent with the bow. Every time she held it, she seemed to become one with it. The arrows she shot flew faster and truer than anyone else's in the region. Villagers would gather to watch Aya practice, and before long, her name spread far and wide as a symbol of skill and pride. Yet behind all the admiring eyes, Aya carried a hidden suffering. She was impatient and always wanted success on the first try. Whenever she stood before the target, she felt heavy pressure. Her mind spun with fears. What if I miss? What if people mock me? What if I'm no longer the best? Those thoughts made her hand shake and her breath quicken. And no matter how talented she was, her arrows often missed the mark. The failures made her even more unsettled. The more she feared, the more she lost her composure. The more she tried to prove herself, the more she missed. Night after night, Aya lay awake staring at the ceiling, her heart in turmoil. How could someone as gifted as she was miss so often? One day in despair, Aya sought out an old monk living at a mountain temple. Bowing, she honestly shared her struggles, hoping for a secret to overcome her unease. The old monk listened quietly, eyes full of compassion, and said only one short sentence: "Learn how to breathe." Aya was taken aback. She thought everyone knows how to breathe. Why should I learn this? I came here for archery secrets, not breathing lessons. But seeing the monk's calm and serenity, she didn't argue. She quietly obeyed and began sitting still, observing her breath. The first days were uncomfortable. Aya was used to movement, to a lively, competitive rhythm. Now, having to sit still just to breathe in and out felt pointless and boring. Her mind kept running to the past and worrying about the future. Restlessness made her want to quit, but the monk's teaching seemed to echo in her ears: learn how to breathe. So Aya persisted day after day, sitting down and focusing on each breath. Slowly, gradually, something strange began to happen. Her racing heartbeat eased. Her once labored breathing grew deep and smooth. Layers of anxious waves inside her seemed to loosen. Aya began to feel a gentle stillness in her heart. One morning, after many months of practice, Aya picked up her bow again. This time she didn't rush to shoot. She stood still, closed her eyes, and took a long, deep breath. Then she exhaled slowly, letting all her attention rest on the warm stream of air moving through her body. When she opened her eyes, her gaze was clear and calm. Aya drew the bowstring. Her hands no longer trembled. Her heartbeat stayed steady. The arrow left the string, flew straight, and struck the bullseye. But more important than the result, Aya realized that she was no longer afraid of it. Her entire mind was present in each moment of the action and the breath, in drawing the bow and releasing the string. That complete presence is what brought accuracy. From that day, Aya no longer practiced archery just to hit the target. She practiced to come back to herself. With each inhale and exhale, she felt her mind settle. Each arrow released was no longer a contest, but a chance to experience awareness. Over time, Aya's skill grew even more refined but more precious than that her face now shone with peace. People in the region were surprised. They saw that Aya was no longer impatient or restless. Whenever she stood before the target, everything around her seemed to quiet, leaving only still focused attention. When the arrow struck the center, people didn't just see skill. They felt the peaceful energy radiating from her. Aya understood that anxiety about results is the greatest enemy of success. When the mind is swept into the future, your actions lose precision. But when the mind returns to the present without judgment, things naturally become harmonious. From then on, Aya became not only a great archer, but also a master of awareness. Aya's story has been told across generations. People remember her not only as a skilled female archer, but as living proof that by simply learning how to breathe, by returning to the present one, can rediscover inner strength and freedom. Imagine a jar of cloudy water that has just been stirred. Dust, sand, and mud swirl together, making the water murky. If you keep stirring, it will never clear. But if you set the jar down and leave it alone, the sediment will gradually settle. The water becomes crystal clear. Your mind is the same. When it's stirred by anxiety, fear, greed, and anger, it becomes cloudy and can't see truth clearly. But if you know how to stop and return to the breath resting in the present, those muddy elements slowly settle. Your mind becomes clear and peaceful, and you can see things as they really are. Modern neuroscience has also proven the practical value of mindfulness. Researchers point out that when people practice mindfulness, the brain activates the prefrontal cortex, the area related to focus, emotional regulation, and wise decision-making. At the same time, the amygdala, the part that reacts strongly to fear and stress, reduces its activity. In other words, mindfulness helps you stay calmer, less driven by emotion, and more able to choose wise actions in difficult situations. This is no longer just an abstract philosophical teaching, but a scientifically confirmed truth. When you breathe mindfully, you are healing your nervous system. Spending just a few minutes each day on conscious breathing gives your brain a chance to recover and gives your heart a quiet space to return to ease. That is planting the seed of peace right in your body and mind. The Buddha taught more than 2,000 years ago, mindfulness is a practical path out of suffering and toward healthy living. And today, science has confirmed it. But mindfulness doesn't only belong in the meditation hall. It can be practiced in every ordinary moment in how you eat, walk, work, talk, and even when you face strong emotions. When eating, eat mindfully. Put the phone down. Don't rush to scroll the news or stare at the screen. Look at your bowl of rice, sense the aroma and sweetness, and quietly know that within each grain there is sunlight, rain, the farmer's sweat, and Mother Earth's nourishment. Eating this way, you nourish not only the body, but also gratitude and peace in the heart. When walking, walk mindfully. Feel your feet touch the ground. Sense each step connecting you with the solid earth. Each step is a homecoming, a steadiness. If you truly pay attention, you'll realize each step becomes a kiss offered to Mother Earth. When working, work with full concentration. Instead of trying to multitask, which only increases stress and reduces effectiveness, choose one task and give it your whole attention. When you are truly present with your work, efficiency rises and your mind is less stressed and scattered. When conversing, listen mindfully. Don't listen while preparing your reply or while distracted by other worries. Listen for real with your full presence. When you listen mindfully, you give the other person a priceless gift understanding, and that understanding dissolves distance and misunderstanding. When facing emotions, pause and breathe. If anger arises, don't suppress it or explode. Gently say to yourself, "Hello, anger. I know you are here." Just naming it is one step toward freedom. Emotions stop being enemies and become teachers. Anger comes, you recognize it. Anger goes, you smile. Mindfulness doesn't require you to abandon everyday life. It doesn't demand you become a monastic or live alone in the mountains. Mindfulness can be present in the smallest actions of daily living. What matters is not what you do, but whether you are truly present while doing it. A jar of water clears only when you let it be. A mind becomes clear only when you know how to stop and come back. In our modern world where people are pulled by a relentless pace, mindfulness is the art of slowing down so you can see clearly, love more, and live fully in each moment. Have you noticed that most of your suffering doesn't really come from circumstances, but from how your mind reacts to them? A careless remark from someone can make you miserable all day. Not because the words themselves have destructive power, but because your mind clung to them, replayed them, and inflated them into a wound. Without mindfulness, we often identify with emotions and get carried away like a leaf in a storm. With mindfulness, you see that words are just words. Emotions are just emotions. They arise, stay briefly, and pass. You don't have to be bound by them. You don't have to let one thoughtless sentence hijack your whole day. Thus, mindfulness is the path to freedom. Freedom from being controlled by emotions. Freedom from the unconscious, reactive habits that have gripped you for years. When you live mindfully, you're no longer a victim of circumstances. You become the master of your own life. You can choose how to respond and how to live instead of being swept along by haste, anger, or worry. This inner freedom is the most genuine and lasting freedom. No external force can take it away. Mindfulness doesn't just bring immediate calm to the mind, it is also the doorway to the true nature of life. When the mind is quiet, like a lake without ripples, you see more clearly the truths the Buddha taught: impermanence, non-self, and the deep interconnection of all beings. You see that everything changes, that the solid self you cling to is just a temporary assemblage, and that you have never really been separate from the life around you. In that moment, joy and compassion naturally arise because you know the nature of life is connection and mutual support. Mindfulness is like a flashlight in the dark. It doesn't create the path, but it helps you see the path that's already there. The path of awakening. The path back to the original clarity of the mind. As you practice mindfulness, you gradually recognize a wonderful truth. Deep down, you already carry the bright seed of awakening. This is Buddha nature, pure, lucid, and untainted by greed, anger, and delusion. Mindfulness doesn't give you Buddha nature. It was never absent. It simply helps the mind's murkiness settle like a jar of muddy water that, when left, still lets the sediment sink, so the inherent clarity appears. Understanding this, you see that everyone, no matter their past, already carries the seed of awakening. Those who have strayed, those who have suffered, those who have caused harm, all can return, nurture, awaken, and live from that radiant nature. Each mindful breath, each mindful step is a chance to touch the seed of awakening within you. When you truly live from this inherent Buddha nature, you not only free yourself from suffering, you also spread peace, love, and wisdom to those around you. So you don't need to search for anything far away. You only need to return. Listen to your breath, let go of restless thoughts, and recognize the light that has been within you for countless lifetimes. That is the great power of mindfulness, a power that doesn't come from outside, but from awakening and returning within. Have you ever felt deep down that you're always searching for something greater and purer, but you don't know where it is? Have you ever lived with a sense of lack of incompleteness, as if you were never enough, until one day you suddenly realized that what you were searching for had long been present within you? That is the journey, the teaching of Buddha nature, the radiant nature wants to offer you. The Buddha taught that within every person, regardless of status or intellect, there already exists a clear, pure nature that is not stained by greed, anger, or delusion. This nature does not need to be created, nor can it be destroyed. It is inherently present, only temporarily veiled by clouds of ignorance, like a blue sky sometimes covered by fog. Yet the clouds can never dirty the sky. When the wind comes, the clouds part, and the bright sky appears. Long ago, in a poor village on the forest's edge, there was a beggar named Kavi. He had roamed since youth. At dawn, as farmers headed to the fields, Kavi trudged along the dirt road, holding out a chipped bowl for leftover rice and soup. His clothes were tattered and caked with dust. His hair was matted, his face gaunt. People who saw him often shook their heads in pity, sometimes even spoke with scorn. Kavi's eyes were always sorrowful, like a lamp long unfilled with oil. He lived in shame and self-reproach. Whenever he saw children laughing and playing, he would sigh, "Why am I so miserable? Why can't I be like them?" Kavi believed fate was unfair, that he was born only to hardship. Day after day, he shuffled from village to village, begging for meals, curling up at night under someone's eaves. But there was something he had no idea about sewn into the patched, threadbare coat he had worn for years was a hidden, precious gem. A childhood friend who had been close to him in their early days had secretly placed it there. Knowing Kavi was fragile and might one day fall into hardship, the friend gave him the jewel in hopes that when he eventually found it, Kavi would no longer have to live in poverty. Yet Kavi never knew this truth. He kept wandering, his mind filled with inferiority and helplessness. Inside, a voice echoed, "I have nothing. I'm just a beggar. I am incomplete." One day, fate arranged a meeting. At sunset, Kavi sat slumped beneath a roadside tree, holding a bowl of cold rice he had begged. Just then, a middle-aged man passed by. He stopped, looked closely, and exclaimed, "Are you?" Kavi looked up with tired eyes. Standing before him was an old friend, his childhood companion, now changed, healthy, radiant, full of presence. The friend was taken aback. "My goodness, how did you end up like this? I remember you used to be so quick and clever." Kavi lowered his head, speaking sadly. "That's life. I have nothing left, just this body to drag from day to day." The friend gazed at him for a long moment, then with a mix of gentle laughter and pity said, "You're strange indeed. You've carried a treasure for years, yet you live like someone destitute." Kavi was puzzled. A treasure? What are you talking about? The friend didn't answer, only told him to search his ragged coat. Kavi did as told and slipped his hand into the worn lining. Suddenly, his fingers touched something hard and cold. He pulled it out. Before him was a gleaming jewel, shining with a strangely clear light. Kavi froze. His eyes widened. His hands trembled. This jewel. How is it here? The friend smiled kindly. I placed it in your coat many years ago. I hoped that when you found it, you would realize you were never truly poor. You simply forgot the value you were carrying. In that moment, Kavi was stunned as if struck to the core. All this time he had lived in self-reproach, haunted by the belief that he was unfortunate and lacking. But now the truth stood plain. He had held a treasure all along, yet lived in poverty because he did not know. From that day on, Kavi's life changed not because the jewel brought him wealth, but because he awakened to this: he was not incomplete. Within him had always been a radiant worth. This story is a mirror for each of our lives. Kavi is a metaphor. In reality, each person carries a precious jewel within. That jewel is Buddha nature, the clear, wholesome nature present from the beginning. Yet we wander like Kavi, self-blaming, self-pitying, and seeking happiness outside ourselves. We think we need more money, more status, more praise to feel valuable. We search everywhere, not knowing that happiness, clarity, and wisdom already lie in our own hearts. Practice, therefore, is not about finding something new. Practice is gradually recognizing the jewel that is already there. Try looking up at the sky. Some days, dark clouds gather and storms roll in, making us think the sky has become gloomy and stained. But in truth, the sky is never dirty. It remains clear. The clouds only cover it for a while. When the clouds disperse, the sky reveals itself again. Your mind is the same. Greed, anger, and delusion are like dark clouds. They make you feel incomplete, small, and weak. But your radiant true nature, the jewel, remains intact. If you know how to stop, recognize, and let go, the clouds will part and the light will appear on its own. Today, science affirms this as well. Neuroscientists have shown that the human brain retains the capacity to heal and reorganize itself. Even after trauma, stress, or prolonged negative thinking, the brain can form new neural connections and gradually restore balance. This capacity is like an inborn strength that cannot be destroyed. It marvelously parallels the Buddha's teaching. The light of awakening is inherently present in everyone. It never disappears given the right conditions it manifests. The lesson from Kavi is not only for a beggar in an old tale. It is for all of us. In life, you may also be living like Kavi, believing you are empty, weak, and unfortunate. But if you are willing to stop and look within, you will see the precious jewel in your own heart. Practice is not about becoming someone else. It is about recognizing your true self. It is a homecoming where you don't need to chase anything outside, but simply learn to release the layers of ignorance, greed, anger, and delusion. Then your inner light naturally shines, and you will understand like Kavi. You have long been rich in the light of Buddha nature, rich in the love and wisdom you already carry. Once you recognize this, you will no longer wander, but walk the path of peace and freedom. What matters most is not whether you believe Buddha nature exists, but how you truly recognize this jewel in your actual life. Ask yourself, why do I keep searching for happiness outside? while still feeling empty inside? Am I like Kavi the beggar carrying a precious jewel without knowing it, Buddha? Nature, the radiant nature, is not a gift bestowed by someone nor a reward for achievements. It has been within you from the very beginning. Like Kavi, you only need to turn back and search the pocket of your own heart to find that the jewel has never left you. Our greatest mistake is to chase outer glitter while the real treasure sits in our chest. Imagine this: to see the blue sky, the clouds must first settle. Likewise, to see Buddha nature, your mind must grow less agitated. We don't need to search far. We need only to sit down, breathe deeply, and let each mindful breath bring us back to the present. As the mind settles like a cloudy jar of water, gradually clearing, the light that has always been within you naturally appears. Here is a truth you need to trust: you already have the light. If you keep believing you are defective or hopeless, you will live like Kavi, poor, even while holding the jewel. But when you trust that you are inherently radiant, you gain the strength to change and to live true to that deepest nature. This is not just belief, it is the key to genuine freedom. Buddha nature is not some distant philosophical concept. It needs to be lived in small, everyday actions. When you offer a kind smile to a stranger, when you forgive someone's mistake, when you choose honesty over deceit, your inner jewel is shining. You don't need grand deeds to prove your worth. Simply live true to your inherent kindness and wisdom, and you are already touching Buddha nature. When you truly realize that you already possess this light, obsessions with inferiority or comparisons fade. You no longer chase praise nor fear criticism. You understand that your value does not come from outside, but from the light within. This recognition brings a profound freedom from the illusion of a defective self, freedom from the chains of external conditions. So how can you touch this jewel in daily life? You can start with very small practices. Each morning, sit quietly for a few minutes and follow your breath. As you inhale and exhale silently, remind yourself, there is a shining jewel within me. You'll feel your mind settle and a quiet confidence arise. When anger flares, pause and ask, is this anger my true nature or just a passing cloud? Remind yourself that your essence is the clear sky and anger is only temporary cloud cover. This view helps you avoid being swept away by emotion. When facing difficulty, recall Kavi's story. Do not forget that you already possess inner resources, light, and wisdom. Hardships are chances for your jewel to shine more brightly. Try placing a hand on your chest, closing your eyes, and whispering, I am already complete. In that very moment, you may feel a gentle yet steady strength flowing in your heart. That is Buddha nature, the jewel you have carried all along. Once you recognize it, life is no longer a restless search, but a journey home to the light within you. When you realize you already possess this radiant nature, you'll also notice something wondrous. Everything you have today, from breath and life to the chance to practice, is a gift. Naturally, gratitude will arise. Grateful for life's opportunity to live. Grateful for the people and conditions that helped you discover your inner jewel. Grateful even for difficulties because they revealed your inherent light. Therefore, our journey continues with another profound lesson: gratitude. Only with gratitude can the jewel within you truly shine, connecting with all beings and turning that light into a source of peace for the whole world. Have you ever sat quietly and asked yourself, have I truly felt grateful for anything in this life? People usually notice what they lack and what doesn't go their way more than what they already have. It's easy to complain about a rainy day instead of recognizing that rain sustains the crops. It's easy to gripe about a meal that isn't to your taste instead of thinking about the thousands of hands that helped bring that grain of rice to you. That is why gratitude is considered one of the most important doorways that brings us back to peace. The Buddha taught gratitude is the foundation that nourishes compassion and happiness. When you are grateful, you no longer feel alone or unfortunate. You see that you are supported by countless beings. Gratitude is not just a feeling. It is a deep way of seeing that reveals the truth of dependent origination. Nothing exists by itself. Everything arises in reliance on everything else. Long ago, in a small village nestled against a mountainside, there was a young woman named Amira. From childhood, she lived in scarcity. Her parents were small traders who toiled all year without ever having plenty. Whenever she looked out at the dusty dirt road and saw friends her age wearing new clothes, traveling, or getting a proper education, a hard-to-name sadness rose in Amira. She often muttered, "Why is my life so hard? Why am I always lacking and struggling? Why are others fortunate while life is so unfair to me?" Day after day, Amira sank into those complaints. She viewed life as a long string of misfortunes, and there was always a trace of melancholy in her eyes. Villagers felt for her, but sometimes they shook their heads. If this girl keeps living in blame and complaint, she may never see anything good. One day, when the sorrow grew too heavy, Amira decided to visit the village teacher, a wise elder respected by all. She sat down, eyes brimming, and poured out all her inner knots, the hardship, the lack, and the sense of injustice she had carried for years. The teacher didn't rush to console her. He listened carefully, letting Amira speak all her grief. Then after a pause, he took a small grain of rice from his pocket, placed it in her hand, and said, "Take this grain. Go and find how many people and how many conditions helped it reach your hand." Amira was puzzled. She didn't understand what this tiny grain could have to do with her suffering. But out of respect, she agreed. The next day, Amira began her journey. She went to the rice fields outside the village. There she saw farmers bent under the harsh sun. Their hands were calloused. Beads of sweat rolled down their sun-browned faces, soaking into the soil and into each sprouting grain. She realized to have the grain in her hand, many people had labored hard. She looked up at the sky. The sun shone. Rains had fallen from faraway clouds, helping seeds sprout and fields grow green. Amira suddenly saw nature, too, was part of this grain's existence. The earth had nourished each root, the wind had helped the grain ripen, and the whole universe seemed to be working together. Amira continued to the village market. There she saw vendors carrying heavy loads hauling rice from the fields to sell for money, then transporting it everywhere. Those loads of rice, heavy with their sweat, left her in silent awe. Returning home, Amira saw the cook kindling a fire. The flames flickered, the smoke stung the eyes, and those hands patiently turned rice into a fragrant, tender bowl of food. In a single bowl of rice, so many people and conditions converged. In that moment, Amira burst into tears. She realized she had never truly been alone. Every bowl of rice she ate was the work of countless hands. Every breath she drew was thanks to green plants releasing oxygen. Every sip of water she drank came thanks to rain from the sky, rivers flowing, and aquifers sustaining life. For the first time, Amira understood with her whole heart that she lived in the arms of the universe. From then on, Amira stopped complaining. She began practicing gratitude. Just one drop of honey is enough to show us life's wonder. It's sweet and pure, but inside it is the labor of an entire hive. Thousands of flights, thousands of blossoms visited, thousands of times tiny wings grew tired but did not stop. A small drop of honey is the essence of a collective. Gratitude is like that. It is not merely the polite words, "thank you." It is the deep seeing that in each small thing we enjoy, there is the effort of a community of the earth and sky of countless beings. Today, modern science has also demonstrated the remarkable power of gratitude. Psychologists have shown that people who regularly practice gratitude are happier and less prone to depression and anxiety. One famous experiment even found that people who kept a daily gratitude journal for 3 consecutive weeks slept better, felt more optimistic, and had a much higher capacity to handle stress. The human brain is wired to pay more attention to danger, that survival instinct. But when you intentionally notice and appreciate what is good, the brain forms new neural connections that strengthen feelings of ease and peace. This is scientific evidence for the Buddha's teaching. By cultivating gratitude, you are planting happiness in every cell of your body. So how do you practice gratitude? The answer is very simple, but it requires patience and sincerity. Start with the smallest things. Each morning, as soon as you open your eyes, silently say, "Thank you for another day to live." This simple sentence can change the way you enter the day. When you drink a sip of water, think of the clouds, the river, and the rain that brought that drop to your lips. When you meet difficulties, instead of complaining, try asking, "What is this difficulty teaching me? How will I grow from it?" We usually feel grateful only when things go well. But the truth is that adversity is often the deepest teacher. A failure can help you become humble. A pain can help you understand and love others more. A loss can remind you to cherish what remains. Being grateful, even for what is not as you wish, that is true maturation. Practice saying thank you more often. Thank the server who brings you a glass of water. Thank the coworker who helps with a small task. Thank your loved ones simply for being there. When you plant seeds of gratitude, you not only bring yourself joy, you spread positive energy to those around you. And there is one more thing many people forget. Are you grateful to yourself? You often scold yourself for not being skilled enough or successful enough. But have you ever sat down, placed a hand on your chest, and said, "Thank you, me"? Thank your feet for carrying you through so many miles. Thank your heart for beating nonstop to keep you alive. Thank yourself for showing up and trying each day, even in the hardest times. When you are grateful to yourself, you become gentler with yourself and less harsh. And from there you learn to love others more fully. From that day on, Amira changed completely. She no longer lived in complaint. She began to look into each bowl of rice each drop of water, each breath, and saw the universe's love within them. She smiled more, said, "Thank you more," and in her heart, a simple happiness began to bloom. Amira's story is a reminder to you and me, life has never abandoned us. If we open our eyes and look deeply, we'll see we are living within a wondrous web of dependent arising where all things are connected. And when we live with gratitude, we not only find happiness for ourselves, we help make the world warmer and more harmonious. Are you ready to try? Right now, take a deep breath and silently say in your heart, "Thank you for I am alive." Have you noticed that when your heart is full of gratitude, flames of anger seem to have nowhere to live? Envy cannot take root either, because your heart is honoring every small thing you have. Gratitude is like sunlight slipping through the cracks of the heart and melting the ice that has built up over time. It nourishes compassion, making it easier to love, forgive, and open yourself to others. You can begin this journey very simply with a gratitude journal. Each night before sleep, write down 3 things you appreciated that day. It might be just a passing smile, a simple meal, or simply the fact that you are still breathing. 3 small things repeated day after day will gradually change how you see the world. Or you can practice with your family. Before meals, spend a few seconds silently thanking the earth and sky, the farmers, and one another. Just a few seconds, and the meal becomes a sacred ritual where each person feels connected in an endless current of love. When you cultivate gratitude, something wondrous appears in your heart faith. Because when you truly appreciate what you have, you stop viewing life through resentment and doubt. You begin to see clearly that no matter how many times you've stumbled, life has not turned its back on you. There is still food to eat, water to drink, breath, sunlight, and there are still people quietly supporting you day by day. Realizing this, you naturally trust that amid countless difficulties, there is always an unseen hand holding you. This faith is not blind belief. It is a deep trust in life, in cause and effect, and in yourself. With gratitude, you see you are not alone, and from there you believe you have enough strength to keep going, to rise after failure, to pass through trials that once seemed impossible. Gratitude is fertile soil. From that soil, steady faith will sprout, grow, and become a sheltering tree that shades you through the scorching days of life. Have you ever asked yourself, what allows a person to get back up after falling, to keep walking on a thorny road? What makes someone not give up even when hardship closes in and there seems to be no way out? The answer doesn't lie in muscular strength or luck, but in an invisible yet essential resource, faith. This faith is not blind belief or a self-soothing illusion. It is right faith grounded in the recognition that within every human being there is already a seed of awakening. That seed is your potential to grow, to transform suffering, to rise into a clearer and freer version of yourself. That very faith is the lamp in the dark, the force that keeps you steady, even when the future is unclear. When you trust that you already have the capacity to change, you won't stay collapsed in failure. On the contrary, you turn adversity into a springboard to go farther. That is the spiritual strength no challenge can defeat. Long ago, in a small village near the foot of a mountain, there was a young man named Lian. Lian was gentle, diligent, and from early on wished to follow the path of practice. But his heart was heavy with a persistent unease. Each time he entered the meditation hall and sat beside his brothers, he saw them calm and peaceful, their breath as light as a breeze. But his own mind was like a river full of waves, thinking about yesterday and then worrying about tomorrow. He asked himself, "Am I really suited for this path? Others practice diligently with light hearts while I'm full of restlessness, always comparing and wavering. I'll probably never attain awakening." That thought grew larger, feeding his self-doubt. Sometimes seeing others' carefree smiles, Lian wanted to leave it all behind, believing he was weak and unworthy of the path of liberation. One afternoon, after many days of torment, Lian went to see the elder teacher revered throughout the monastery for his wisdom and compassion. Lian sat down, bowed his head low, and spoke honestly. "Master, I'm not capable. I look around and everyone else progresses. Everyone is at peace while I'm stuck in place. My mind is scattered. My resolve is weak. I'm afraid I'll never become enlightened." The elder was silent. His eyes were gentle like an autumn lake reflecting the young man's worries. He did not rush to console or scold. Quietly, he reached into his wide sleeve, took out a dried lotus seed, and placed it in Lian's palm. "Look," the teacher said. "This lotus seed is small and dry. At a glance, it seems useless. Someone who doesn't know might throw it away. But do you know, inside this dry shell, there is still a living sprout. If it meets water, sunlight, and the right soil one day, it will grow into a radiant lotus." Lian looked up at the seed in his hand. It was truly dry with a hard, rough shell, nothing that suggested a fragrant lotus. He thought hard to believe. How could something so withered contain a beautiful flower? But the teacher seemed to read his mind and smiled. "You are the same. Don't blame yourself for being weak. Deep within you, a flower bud is already there." The Buddha called it Buddha nature, the seed of awakening that everyone carries. Practice isn't to create that seed, but to tend and water it so it can sprout. Don't compare yourself to others. Each lotus seed has its own time to germinate. Some bloom in a season. Some lie dormant for 100 years before awakening. What matters is not speed, but whether you have enough faith and patience to keep caring for it. Hearing this, Lian's eyes filled with tears. Those words were like cool water on the parched soil of his heart. He realized that all this time he had only looked at his outer dryness and forgotten the life within. From that day, Lian changed his view. He no longer tormented himself whenever his mind was unruly. Instead of scolding himself, he smiled and said, "I am watering my lotus seed." When he saw his brothers more at peace than he was, he stopped comparing and took it as light to orient himself. He understood that everyone is a lotus seed and each needs its own time to bloom. He began with small steps each morning upon waking. He took one deep breath and sat quietly for a few minutes. When his mind chased thoughts, he didn't berate it. He gently brought it back. While working, he focused on each movement as a way of watering the lotus in his heart. Day by day, he didn't see the lotus bloom immediately, but he became less harsh with himself. He stopped chasing instant perfection and learned to be patient. He believed that, like the lotus seed, even in muddy water, there is a lotus bud, and with patience, one day a radiant flower would open. Indeed, Lian began to smile more, not because he had succeeded, but because he had faith. Faith in the seed within himself. Faith that every small step brought him closer to the light. Lian's story reminds us of something simple yet essential. Within each person. There is already a lotus. You don't need to compare yourself to anyone, nor force yourself to bloom early. Your task is to care for it, be patient, and trust. One day, right in the mud of life, the lotus will blossom. Think of a small lotus seed buried deep in mud. Judging by appearances, you might say there's nothing of value there. Black mud, murky water, no light. Everything seems to imprison life. Yet strangely, within that seemingly dirty mud, a lotus seed quietly holds the form of a pure flower. It has not bloomed yet, but life is already inside. It only waits for time's sunshine and cool water to rise through the mud and open into a radiant, fragrant lotus. Human faith is like that. In your painful days, you may think you're hopeless and powerless, that there's nothing worth expecting. But that is only the surface view, like looking at mud and not seeing the lotus bud. In truth, within you is already a seed of awakening, a bright potential. Faith is the sunlight, the cool water, the fertile soil that helps that seed germinate. Today, modern neuroscience confirms this in another way. The human brain can change and adapt neuroplasticity. This means that even if you were once weak, failed often, or lived in negative habits, your brain can still learn new ways, build new habits, and develop wholesome qualities. Like the lotus seed, even if it lies dormant for decades, when the conditions are right, it will sprout. Many psychological studies also show that believing in the ability to change makes a difference. One group of students was taught that intelligence is fixed. Another was taught that intelligence can grow with effort. The second group far outperformed the first because they believed in progress. Faith became an invisible engine, opening the door to training and growth. This aligns with the Buddha's teaching over 2,000 years ago. Every person, wherever they are, and whatever mistakes they've made already, has an enlightened nature. With right faith and proper nurturing, that seed gradually reveals itself. The issue is that you often believe in others more than in yourself. You trust that someone else can succeed or be happy, yet doubt your own capacity to change. That doubt makes you quit easily, like someone who looks at a dry lotus seed and thinks it will never flower. In fact, a lotus seed can lie still in the mud for decades. When the conditions arrive, it still sprouts green. So do you, if you are patient, trusting, and caring. The seed of awakening within you will bloom. The path of practice, like the journey of life, is long and full of obstacles. There will be times you feel discouraged and think you're not progressing. But if you keep faith that the Buddha's teaching is the path of liberation, you won't demand immediate results. You'll patiently take one step at a time, knowing that what matters is not fast or slow, but not stopping. Faith is not only faith in yourself, but also faith in community. One person may go fast, a community goes far. When you trust the support of the Sangha, you won't feel alone. Words of encouragement, a companion's presence, or simply sharing the same path all become resources that help you stand firm. How do you nurture faith? Start with small things. Sit one more minute each day, you've progressed. Each time you restrain a burst of anger, you've grown. don't underestimate small steps. They prove the lotus is being watered. Seeing your own progress, your faith will steadily strengthen. Of course, doubt isn't inherently bad. It helps you question and look deeper. But if doubt lingers without light, it becomes chains that paralyze your will. Right faith is the lamp that helps you cross the darkness of doubt and reserve your energy for real practice. You can apply the following to cultivate faith in daily life. Visualize the lotus seed in your heart. Each morning as you sit, imagine a lotus seed within. Silently say, "I am nurturing the seed of awakening." This image reminds you the light is already there. Recall moments you overcame hardship. When discouraged, remember a time you rose after failure. This proves you have strength and you can go on. Place your faith in the present. Instead of worrying about the future, entrust yourself to today's steps and breaths. When the present is solid, the future brightens on its own. With faith, your heart wavers less. You stop comparing yourself to others. You understand that each person has their own path and rhythm. You don't need to become someone else, only be true to your own journey. One day the lotus within you will bloom and its fragrance will spread. Faith also brings deep peace. When you trust that life never abandons you, your heart feels lighter. You won't despair when difficulties come, because you know there is always a lotus bud in the mud. That is the strength that keeps people resilient, moving forward through adversity, and living fully with their radiant potential. You see, faith is not a vague notion. It is the condition for the lotus within you to sprout for your life, to gain meaning, and for you to walk the path of awakening with a peaceful, steady heart. Most importantly, that faith has long been within you. You only need to recognize it, tend it, and let it grow day by day. When you have faith, your heart becomes clearer and lighter. From that, a new energy arises, joy. Because when you trust, you no longer feel lost, you can smile with each step. Faith is the root. Joy is the fruit. When you trust yourself and the path, you naturally feel joy in the present. Joy doesn't wait for success to appear. It blooms with every confident step. In the next part of our journey, we will go deeper into mudita. Joy, the joy that doesn't depend on external conditions, but arises from wakefulness and trust. It is the joy of knowing you are on the right path, even if you haven't reached the destination, because each step is already full of meaning. Have you ever wondered why some people live in splendid palaces with gold piled high and attendants at their beck and call, yet their faces are etched with worry and their eyes are dark and uneasy? They may eat the finest foods and wear silk and brocade, but peace is always missing in their hearts. Meanwhile, in a distant village, some people live in a small hut. Their meals are just a bowl of rice with a bit of wild greens. Their clothes are frayed at the shoulders, yet their faces shine with smiles, and their steps are light, as if they were walking in a land of happiness. That difference does not lie in material conditions, but in something deep within the ability to cultivate joy, a clear joy arising from within, not bound by external circumstances. The Buddha once taught joy is not found in how much we possess, but in whether the mind knows how to dwell at ease. This means happiness does not come from accumulating more, but from the ability to stop, to appreciate, and to live fully with what we already have. For one who can dwell in the present, not swept away by ambition or clinging out of fear, joy naturally appears like the sun after clouds. Joy is not a flare of excitement that burns out, but a quiet, steady current in the heart. It gives us the strength to pass through suffering light, to illumine the dark, and a spacious heart to receive life as it is. For this reason, to cultivate joy is to nourish one of the deepest sources of genuine happiness. Long ago, on a remote mountain range, shrouded in clouds year-round, there was a monastery hidden among ancient pines. In that monastery lived an elder monk named Tenzin. He had spent many years in practice choosing a secluded, simple life. His cell was just a hut, roofed with dry leaves, its 4 wooden walls weathered by time. Inside, there was nothing beyond a hard bamboo bed, a wooden table worn smooth by years, and a few robes already frayed and torn at the hem. Seen with worldly eyes, one might call that poverty and lack. Yet strangely, Tenzin never showed sorrow or dissatisfaction. Every morning, when the first rays rose from the horizon, people saw a familiar scene. The old monk Tenzin stepped out to the porch, sat on a small rock by the door, closed his eyes for a few seconds, then opened them with a gentle smile. Before him, the sky brightened, the red sun slowly climbed, forest birds sang with clear voices, and the breeze stirred the leaves. All of it became a wondrous symphony of life. And amid that scene on his wrinkled face with white hair of many years, there always shone a quiet yet radiant joy. One day, a young student in the monastery named Aaron, eager to learn but full of ambition and unease, had seen Master Tenzin smiling on the porch many times. Countless questions rose in his mind. How can the master be so joyful? He has no wealth, no status, nothing to cling to, and yet his smile is so at ease. As for me, I have enough food and clothing, friends, and practice, and still I often feel lacking and dissatisfied. At last, unable to contain his curiosity, Aaron approached and bowed. Master, I've watched you many times. Your life is truly simple. No splendid palaces, no gold or jewels, not even the conveniences ordinary people have. So why do you smile every morning as if holding happiness in your hands? Tenzin turned to Aaron, his eyes kind, his voice slow like wind through the forest. My child, joy does not come from palaces or gold. It isn't in what you hold with your hands, but in how you open your heart to receive life. Each morning, I step outside and see that I still have breath, eyes, to see ears, to hear legs, to walk upon this earth, to have one more day to live, to witness the dawn, to hear birdsong that is already a miracle. No one can take that joy away. Arun fell silent. He looked at the master, then at the brightening sky. Until then, he had sought happiness in grand things, an achievement, recognition, a satisfied dream. He had never thought that this very breath, this very moment, could be a deep source of happiness. Tenzin smiled, continuing, as if he could read Arun's mind. Do you see the sun there? It rises every day, shining on all beings. But how many truly pause to watch? Do you hear the birds they sing every morning? But how many people truly listen? Happiness is not about how much you have, but whether you know how to stop and live fully with what is here. Hearing this, Aaron's heart stirred. He realized he had been chasing what he didn't have, forgetting to cherish what he did. He had missed so many dawns, So many smiles, so many ordinary moments that could have softened his heart. From that day, Aaron practiced as the master advised. Each morning before studying or formal practice, he went to the porch, took a deep breath, looked out at the vast sky, and smiled. At first, the smile was forced, and his mind still restless. But gradually, he felt a wholesome energy soak into every cell. He grew lighter, less tense, and began to understand why Master Tenzin always shone, though he had nothing. Years later, Aaron told younger students, "In those days, I thought happiness had to be found outside, in success, in fame, in great things. But Master Tenzin taught me a lifelong lesson. Happiness is already present in the breath, the sunrise, the bird's song, in the steps we take on the earth. If you can recognize and dwell in those things, joy will come without chasing." The story of Tenzin and Aaron spread through the monastery and then out into the world. People told of the poor old monk who was richer than anyone because he had found the secret of happiness. True joy is not in what we possess, but in living fully with the present, with each breath and every morning that arrives. Imagine a small bird singing deep in the forest. There is no audience, no lights, no applause or praise, and yet it sings, letting its song pour out into space, resounding among the mountains. It doesn't sing to prove anything, nor to show off. It sings simply because that is its nature. The joy within becomes sound, and even if no one hears it, sings in complete freedom. We humans are the same. True joy is not for display, not a mask for others, and certainly not a way to prove we are better than someone else. True joy is like that bird song, natural, simple, unconditional. It does not need anyone's approval, nor a particular reason. It is life shining from within you, like a flame that burns on regardless of the surrounding darkness. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Researchers have shown that simply smiling even before you feel you have a reason triggers the brain to release serotonin and dopamine chemicals that relax the body and bring a sense of happiness. In other words, joy is not determined solely by outer circumstances. It also comes from how you train your mind. A simple smile can shift your nervous system and turn a dull day bright. This is exactly what the Buddha taught. Happiness arises from within, not dependent on the outside. From the image of the elder Tenzin smiling at dawn, from the bird's selfless song, from a simple smile that can change body and mind, we can draw very practical lessons. Each morning when you wake, place your hand on your heart, take a deep breath, and silently say, "I have one more day to live, to love, to learn to walk." With that small intention, you have already touched deep happiness. You don't have to wait for great successes or for life to be perfect. Smile when you see a leaf fall outside the porch, when you hear the wind brush the roof, or when a loved one comes to mind. Every moment can be a doorway into joy if you open your heart and live with mindfulness. A cup of hot tea on a rainy afternoon, a flower just opening in the corner of the garden, a friendly morning greeting. These are all miracles you often miss while chasing distant things. If you know how to pause, joy will appear in these very small things. What's important is this: true joy is not for hoarding. When you smile at someone, offer a word of encouragement, or reach out to help a person who is lost, your joy spreads and becomes shared happiness. The more it is shared, the more enduring and powerful it becomes. Remember that true joy does not depend on having or not having, gaining or losing, praise or blame. It is a flame that shines from within a flame no storm of life can extinguish. When you nourish that flame with mindfulness, with gratitude, with a gentle smile, you will see this life is not scarce at all. Happiness has never been out of reach. It already exists in each breath, in every moment you live. Joy is one part of the four immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity that the Buddha left as an inexhaustible treasury for humankind. If loving kindness is a boundless love that embraces all beings without distinction, and compassion is deep empathy for the suffering of beings, then joy is the pure stream flowing from the heart, rejoicing sincerely in others' happiness, and also the inner joy arising from our own heart. Without joy, the path of practice easily becomes dry, rigid, heavy, even harsh toward oneself. With joy, every step becomes light, natural, and steady, because true joy is the oil that keeps the lamp of spiritual practice burning. Joy is not merely an emotional state, it is an energy. Life is full of waves and challenges, and if you strive to do good without joy, you will soon burn out. You can give and sacrifice, but if your heart lacks clear joy as its support, your engagement becomes a burden. Conversely, if you can find joy in each step and each action, that very joy will be the fresh stream that nourishes you to go far. This is why the Buddha emphasized happiness is not just the final result, it must be the path you walk. Joy is not the same as shallowness or fleeting sensory thrills. It is not a forced laugh nor a counterfeit high chased through pleasure. Joy is a calm, deep happiness that arises when the mind can stop and rest in the present. It is the joy of sitting down and realizing you are still breathing, that you have another day to love and to learn. It is the joy of listening to birds in the forest, watching a sunrise, smiling at a stranger, and seeing a moment of connection in their eyes. Joy is a quiet flame, yet warm enough to heat your own heart, and from there to warm others. Looking back, you'll see our journey has passed through key milestones, from recognizing suffering dukkha as a fundamental truth to seeing impermanence in each breath and falling leaf, from releasing clinging to understand non-self to learning renunciation, letting go to walk lightly, from opening loving kindness and compassion for ourselves and others to finding balance through the middle way, from contemplating dependent origination to see interconnection to practicing mindfulness so the mind becomes clear, from recognizing the Buddha nature inherent in everyone to cultivating gratitude and faith. All of these bring us back to the same meeting point, the inner light, where joy is the lamp that never goes out. Imagine this: if a person has wisdom and love but lacks joy, what would their path be like? It would be like a fertile field left parched for lack of water. When joy is present, every other virtue is nourished. Wisdom is no longer dry reasoning, but light shining with delight. Compassion is no longer a heavy duty, but a natural flow of love. And letting go is no longer bitter, it becomes freedom accompanied by a gentle smile. When we can smile from within, not because we're praised or because conditions are favorable, but simply because we sense life flowing, true joy appears. And that joy makes the path of practice no longer a long chain of compulsion, but a light, natural, and happy journey. So as we close this chapter of the journey, remember, this practice is not about seeking some far-off realm, but about recognizing the precious jewel already within you. Let that clear joy walk with you every step. When you have joy, each moment is a festival. Each breath is a song, and each day of life is a revealed miracle. Every journey eventually comes to an end, but what we have gone through together is not just for hearing on a single evening or storing away on a page. It is the living breath of each day, the cool breeze when you look up at the sky, the gentle drop of water when you are thirsty, the quiet moonlight on the lake, or the warm smile of a loved one. The Buddha's teachings are not outside of life. They are life itself, recognized when we return and live fully in the present moment. The Buddha completed the path of awakening not so that we would merely look on or worship from afar, but so that you yourself can walk it with your own 2 feet. He points out the path. The journey is yours. Suffering will pass. Joy will also change. But if you know how to nourish gratitude, keep mindfulness and place your trust in the Buddha nature already within you, that will be a durable set of provisions that never disappears. Today's science also shows that when we practice gratitude daily, the brain activates regions that generate a sense of peace, reduces anxiety, and strengthens emotional resilience. What researchers have discovered with modern instruments the Buddha taught more than 2,000 years ago. Within a person's mind, there is already a bright jewel. It only needs the dust wiped away. Remember, you are not alone and you are not incomplete. Within you, there is already a shining jewel. And if one day you feel tired, sit down, take a deep breath, and smile. In that very moment, you have come home, the quiet home within your own heart. Thank you for walking this journey fully with me. If you find these sharings helpful, please subscribe to the Silent Moon Dharma channel. Leave a comment, share with your loved ones,